It's Tuesday for you. It's Monday for me. Thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right across from me is a super talented producer, Carlene Bragg.
Hi, everyone. You're back.
You're back. I haven't seen you
true.
in, what, 3 days?
Well, been a
3
long time.
work days.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. I'm like, how do you do this? What button does what? Are we live?
You got some studio rust on you. You got to shake it off.
I got to shake. You got to bear with me today because I'm shaking off from a long weekend. But we have a busy day, per usual, busy afternoon. A lot happening. The president is going to be in North Carolina, Fort Bragg specifically. He's speaking right now. We have the care retrial going. But first, before we get to anything else, we want to get to the weather. Because I saw Carlene has been taking my advice about before we get into the show.
I've been taking a stroll outside.
Take a stroll outside.
It was nice. You know what? It was the cloudy, and it wasn't too bad.
But it was a little humid.
It's a little humid.
That's why meteorologist Becca Bursall has to explain something.
Yeah. It is humid and cloudy. You just can't win.
I feel like I always hold you accountable. It could be the best day ever. I'm like, Becca, why is it so nice outside? Why?
Yeah, not the best day at all. We're hanging on to the cloud cover from yesterday's storms. But you know what? We are expected to see some sunshine break out, which is only going to heat things
That's
up
the thing. It's
even
going to get
more.
warm. You're like, the sunshine's nice, but it'll heat up.
It's going to be a pretty uncomfortable afternoon. So that's what we're preparing for. That's also going to lead for yet another round of storms later on this afternoon and evening, some of which could be on the stronger side. Low and severe weather threat for tonight. Main concern is going to be strong to damage you wind gusts. But tonight is also the full moon.
Look
It
at
is
this.
the June full moon called the strawberry moon. It actually comes from the Native American tribes in the Northeast who were harvesting wild strawberries in early June. Now, it's not going to appear red despite the name, but this is actually going to be the lowest one in decades due to something called a rare lunar standstill. And if you're wondering what is that, I will be fully breaking that down in one of my weather hits coming up at the 4 and 5 o'clock hour. But it is going to appear lower, also with some golden and orange hues potentially early tomorrow morning that actually could mix with some wildfire smoke as well. So this evening, probably not going to be the best time to view it. It's actually going to be peaking around 3, 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll still see early tomorrow morning as well. But that's when we'll start to see some clouds gradually clearing out around midnight and then gradually clearing early tomorrow morning. So some breaks in the clouds I think will make for a fair viewing event later on tonight. So this is not going to be a clear view of the sky, but certainly if you are up at the time, definitely look towards the sky. Outside right now, we've got clouds kind of pretty much everywhere. A little bit of sunshine breaking out over towards our Dallas camera and Anson County, but temperatures are responding to that little bit of sun. Now today, clouds will gradually clear out. Probably high clouds will make way for filtered sunshine. Above average temperatures today. Tonight, another round of strong to severe storms. And looking ahead, it's going to be a warm week with pretty much daily storm chances in the forecast. For today, high temperatures, the middle to upper 80s. Yesterday we did 89. We'll probably do a few degrees below that, but feeling like the upper 80s, certainly with that humidity factor. Here's today's severe weather threat. This is from the Storm Prediction Center. It's put us under a low-end threat for severe storms tonight. Main concern is going to be those strong to damaging wind gusts. And right now on our Doppler radar, it's actually been pretty active down to the south of us, south of Columbia, even a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings and a tornado warning for portions of the Charleston area. Now just a rain event. And this is all ahead of a stalled front that is currently sitting over the Charlotte area. Eventually, this will push to the east, and as it does so, that's going to bring another round of storms that we'll see later on this afternoon, but also into our Wednesday as well, as this kind of just hangs around. So Futurecast timing this all out for you. Here comes the thunderstorms, 3, 4 o'clock, setting up around the I-40 corridor during this time, and then eventually making its way down into the metro area. This model really has it coming in around 6, 7 o'clock. You can see those darker oranges, reds, indicating some really heavy rainfall. The potential for some lightning and some strong winds is with this. Well, it's going to be a slow-moving system, so we could hang on to the rain and cloud cover all the way through the nighttime hours before eventually clearing off right around midnight. And another round of rain expected for Wednesday, but it's just not going to be much. Stray shower really in the forecast or thunderstorm, and we'll carry that threat into Thursday and Friday before rain chances start to increase for this upcoming weekend. It's going to be very summer-like, hit-or-miss thunderstorms. Definitely don't cancel any plans, but keep an eye on that WCNC radar if you do have any outdoor activities planned. But in the 7-day forecast, you'll notice a lot of upper 80s. We were forecasting highs in the 90s both Thursday and Friday, but started to back down just a little bit, upper 80s. So, Nick, that's good news. No 90-degree days in this 7-day forecast. It could be worse for the month of June.
I don't know if that makes me feel better, though.
But
It could be worse, so you can't complain. Right, right.
Okay. Look, it's not bad. I'm looking at 7
Okay.
day. It's not bad. So I can't complain.
We'll give it like a B minus.
Okay, B minus.
Yeah,
I'll give it
okay.
That's fair.
solid B minus. That's pretty good.
That is.
For early summer forecast. That's
You know what?
pretty good.
B also stands for Brad. And Brad
That is
does.
I love what you did there.
That's the segue, folks. That's the segue.
Carlin, you're on to something.
Genius.
You have a future in this business, Carlin. You see it right there. So starting at 6:30, live weather impact only on WCNC Plus with Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. We launched the show yesterday. Again, it starts at 6:30. So really, you have no excuse to turn off your TV the entire day.
Keep it on. Keep us on.
Because you
All
have
the
the
time.
stream all the time. You have the stream from 7 to 9. It goes into Jane from 9 to 11. You go to Charlotte today, midday,
Yep.
and then here on the live impact stream from 12:30 to 3 with me, then 3 to 4 with Colin and Vanessa. I'm giving a whole rundown right now just to give you no excuses. And then you have the slate of afternoon, evening shows. And then right after that, you have Brad at 6:30 live weather impact on WCNC Plus. Plus, we have more stuff from 7 to 9.
That's right.
Am I missing anything, Carlene?
I think that's it. It just shows we're always here.
I'm
So
out of
please
breath.
join us.
I'm out of breath.
Yes, and you know what, Brad will also be tracking thunderstorms
Yeah,
later on this
yeah.
afternoon and evening, so it would be a great time, especially if you're headed outdoors.
And look, here's the thing too. Becca Birdsall will be back in about an hour, so you don't want to miss it. So you have Brad at 6:30, but way before we get to Brad, we have Becca Birdsall here in studio, in the Live Impact studio at 1:30 again, in case you missed it, or if you just enjoy my banter back and forth with Becca.
I'll be back, of
Becca, thank you for your time.
course.
All right. So let's shift gears now. Let's head over to Washington, D.C., where right now President Donald Trump is speaking. Here's a look. President Trump, this is ahead of his scheduled visit to Fort Bragg today. So he's planning to address soldiers and observe a readiness demonstration. And that event comes before the Army's 250th birthday celebrations starting this weekend on Saturday, actually. So here's the president. He's taking questions from reporters now. Let's take a listen in.
The National Guard under Title X into these communities and make sure that operations go smoothly, that law enforcement officers are protected, that they can continue to do their work without fear of being injured or killed or disrespected, and that they can go home to their families at night. So I'm incredibly proud of the President for activating the National Guard and for sending in these Marines, because these Marines are specifically trained to meet the need that we have on the ground in LA right now. And Governor Newsom has done a disservice to the state of California for many years. The people there should never elect him into a leadership position ever again. He
The
clearly
governor's a
cannot
nice
be
guy, but
trusted.
he's grossly incompetent.
Terrible
When it comes to
governor.
his railroad that he's building, where it's like 30 times over budget, nobody's ever seen anything like it. Now it doesn't even go to San Francisco and LA. It's way short of it. After years of work and overruns like nobody's, those contractors are some of the wealthiest people in the world, I guarantee you that, because that money goes to those contractors. They just did a number on the wallet of the people of California. That train, you should look at that train. That is the greatest. I've never seen cost overruns. I've seen cost overruns and great incompetence over my life. I've never seen anything like that.
Mr. President, these protests obviously started in reaction to these large-scale ICE operations in Los Angeles. Should people expect to see similar operations in the rest of the country?
Yeah.
And will similar protests see similar response?
As you know, we're moving murderers out of our country that were put here by Biden or the auto pen. The auto pen really did. I mean, the people, whether it's Lisa Monaco or whoever operated the auto pen, these are criminals. The people are criminals that allowed these criminals into our country. And I don't think that Biden knew what the hell he was doing. I don't think he even knew about it. But when they opened up our borders for the whole world to come in, yeah, we're going to get them out. We're getting them out. We're starting to get acknowledgement from the courts that, you know, as a system. They come in without courts and they go out, they want trials and everything else. I think that's starting to work out now. Judges are starting to see what a terrible situation it is. Many of those people that you saw on television last night are criminals that were allowed into our country by Biden. And they want to stay. And we don't want them. And they come from jails, and they come from mental institutions, and they come from all over the world, not just South America. And we're not going to let them stay. And this is the first, perhaps, of many, or perhaps, you know, if we didn't attack this one very strongly, you'd have them all over the country. But I can inform the rest of the country that when they do it, if they do it, they're going to be met with equal or greater force than we met right here. We did a great job. The people, you, Christy, and Tom Holman, and all of the people, Pete Hegseth, all of the people involved did an amazing job. We stopped a disaster. And it looks like a planned disaster, not just, this didn't just happen. They had weapons, they had tools, they had everything you needed. I mean, they were throwing iced water in bottles, in glass bottles, at officers and at soldiers. These are, you could not use the word insurrection, but you could also use the word, these are very dangerous people, they're bad people. They were met with heavy force and they folded. And they may be there a little bit tonight, they may be there a little bit, but it seems to be getting less and less because they're going there and they're met with a very heavy force. And if they weren't, you would have that city right now would be on fire. It would be burning down. The rest of it, what's left over, because the other fire was started because they wouldn't allow water into LA. They wouldn't allow water into California because they had it all shifted out to the Pacific Ocean, and I turned it around. And I told them to do it in my first term, and they didn't do it. And we had COVID, and they didn't do it. And I told them to do it. We did it in the second. Now we have billions of gallons of water flowing down. But Newsom should have done this. He's an incompetent man, an incompetent governor. Okay, any other questions?
Mr. President, any message to adversaries as the Army kicks off 215-year birthday celebration?
I just think it's amazing. We're going to have a fantastic June 14th parade, Flag Day. It's going to be an amazing day. We have tanks, we have planes, we have all sorts of things. And I think it's going to be great. We're going to celebrate our country for a change. You know, recently, as you know, with World War II, the victory of World War II, I called up France and they were celebrating the victory. Well, we helped them a lot, as you know. I don't have to get into that. But I called up other countries. They were all celebrating the victory. We're the only country that didn't celebrate the victory. And we're the one that won the war. Okay, if it wasn't for us, that war, you would be speaking German right now, okay? We won the war, and you might be speaking Japanese too. I mean, you might be speaking a combination of both. We won the war, and we're the only country that didn't celebrate it. And we're going to be celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protester that wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest, but, you know, this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much.
Let's move out.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Keep moving. Thank you, everybody.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sertovan. That was a press conference there in the Oval Office with President Trump and other leaders there within his cabinet. That is just wrapping up. President Trump, at the time, was addressing the protests out in L.A., the ICE protests. Again, that press conference just wrapping up. He is actually headed to North Carolina, Fort Bragg, for a scheduled visit. He will address soldiers and observe a readiness demonstration, and this comes before the Army's 250th birthday celebrations that start this weekend. So we will track as soon as President Trump flies out, and then and when he lands, and obviously we'll stream it once he's here in North Carolina. All right, now let's shift over to a trial we've been covering for weeks at this point. What week are we in right now? 8 weeks. Okay, that's what I thought. We're 2 months of this trial. Actually, more than 2 months, considering the build-up and pre-trial stuff. But we're talking about a Karen Reed trial. So Karen Reed is charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating a vehicle under the influence and leaving the scene, accused of striking John O'Keefe, her Boston police officer boyfriend, with her SUV back in 2022. And leaving him to die alone in the snow outside of a house party in Canton, Massachusetts. Now, witness testimony is continuing today after tensions ran high yesterday. On Monday, the defense called, and Carlene, you were here for that. On Monday, the defense called for a mistrial over the prosecution's questioning of an accident reconstruction expert, Dr. Daniel Wolf. Again,
This is the second time they've called for it.
Wow, yeah. I do remember that.
Yeah.
Oh man, so it was.
It's been a heated morning already between the two. It's already been, yeah.
It's been like that.
It's been spicy, yeah.
Well, let's take a listen into what's happening right now.
Quality assurance. First, the medical examiner conducts the autopsy and writes a report. Then the doctor herself, the chief medical examiner, because she is a perfectionist, determined that she was going to establish a protocol in which she would put eyes on every single report. Hundreds and hundreds of reports per year. In doing so, she had to prioritize which reports were going to take a priority, which ones were being subject to litigation, which ones were going to be subject to criminal cases, and which ones were never going to be subject to any review at all. For instance, if somebody was found, let's say somebody that was without family, etc., found and unidentified, there's no litigation attendant to that report, she would put that report aside and get to that report after she dealt with the reports that were on sort of on the front burner, if you will. After, by the way, none of the reports were ever not done. They were all completed. There were a small fraction of reports, according to the audit and according to Dr. LaPosada herself, that had to take a back seat. When the medical director came in 2005, by the way, this is 25 years ago, right? These are autopsies that were performed, and the audit was performed for autopsies and reports dealing with the year 2000. It's 2025. This is 25 years ago. When the new medical director came in for Rhode Island, he said, I don't want any review of any of the reports because it's more efficient and it's faster to get the reports out in a timely fashion. She resisted and said, I will never, ever, and she was published saying this, I will never, ever sacrifice quality for speed. I want the highest quality coming out of this office. They had a difference of opinion. She walked away because he was asking her, the new medical director was asking her to sacrifice quality of the conduct that she was undertaking as the chief medical examiner for the state of Rhode Island. So it's a very different circumstance than was just suggested. No bodies were ever left unattended, ever. Certainly did not involve the other phrase that was just used is negligence and malfeasance. It was a backlog, and they had a very public political fight over it. Number two, with regard to the Station nightclub fire, her staff was on location immediately. She, as the chief medical examiner, was there the same day. So that's of no legal moment. That's of no consequence. It certainly has nothing to do with her opinions and conclusions in this case. The Tompkins case, we've already talked about that in voir dire, Your Honor. The Tompkins case dealt with an issue dealing with accident reconstruction, which she's not undertaking. I'm not asking her, and she ain't saying it.
I've excluded that part of it, based partially on the Tompkins case.
Right, and I don't know anything about the Patino case, and what I would say is, given the fact, look, we don't know what the facts of that case were. We don't know what the trial was about. We don't know what the cross-examination was about. We don't know why she was called. We don't know what she looked at. We don't know why she was looking at what she did look at. We don't know why she didn't look at things that she might not have looked at. We don't know why her opinions and conclusions were ultimately rendered. We would have to have a trial within a trial, which I would be happy to undertake if someone gives me a file. Happy to do that. But I don't think we want to do that. I don't think the court wants to do that. Also, I will say, I don't think that attacking this witness's credibility is in good faith by the Commonwealth. Mr. Brennan himself has hired Dr. La Posada personally no fewer than 4 or 5 times. Maybe it's 3 or 4 times. He knows her qualifications. He knows the quality of her work. He's actually undertaken to consult with her as a medical examiner and a consultant. So I don't believe that these last 2 issues are in good faith. I don't believe the station fire has anything to do with anything because she was late, according to Mr. Brennan, in coming to the actual location. She was there the same day, and she had an entire staff that was there immediately. And in terms of the audit, it's a 25-year-old political fight that isn't quite what Mr. Brennan made it out to be. So I don't think any of these things are relevant for cross-examination. I'll submit.
All right.
I just want to make a note that Attorney Jackson has a way with words to just inflate or make things up. I have not hired Dr. La Posada 4 or 5 times. And so that is just a mischaracterization which he likes to do for the public. But the reality is I've used her a few times, and the last time I used her, I'm not going to disclose why I don't use her anymore because it would be unfair without her in the room. But the suggestion that somehow I'm endorsing the qualifications of this witness, I am not. That's what I'm going to say on the record.
Okay. So the first 2, the backlog issue, if we can call it that, with the ME's office, I'm going to allow the Commonwealth to get into that through questioning. Same with the station nightclub fire, based on the testimony already in evidence. Those 2 areas, and Mr. Jackson, without leading, you can certainly go back and rehabilitate her. But those 2 will come in. I'm not going to do anything with Tompkins because I used it for the basis of keeping out what appeared to me to be biomechanical engineering opinions of this witness, and she's not qualified to do that. So I have not read Patino. I will read it over the lunch break and see if we get anywhere with that. Okay, so I need a copy of that. I want you to give Mr. Jackson a copy as well.
I will.
Okay?
Has a copy.
Okay, so,
I didn't know that. I appreciate that.
all right.
The only other thing, I don't know if you want to handle it now or after lunch or later, but I want to address the issue of the 3 personnel.
Okay, so let's mark those now.
Sure.
Can we mark them all as 1 A, B, C?
I have no preference one way or the other. It's just 3. They're all.
Mr. Jackson, if you can I just see it over here?
Of course.
Just hold up the size. ID, yeah.
Yeah, it would be, yeah. It's tomorrow.
You know what, show me that one again too, please. Okay.
exhibits H, quadruple H, and I, through I.
Oh, all right. All right. Mr. Brennan, there's no objection to these coming in through another witness, so you agree that they'll be coming into evidence?
I'll stipulate
All right. And what's the objection to them coming in through Dr. LaPosada?
it's not part of her report or opinion. She's gone beyond her report, talking about the fact that she's studied x-rays and given an opinion. I think that suffices. It really, I think, is beyond the scope of her testimony to begin with. I'd be gracious with it. Stipulate to these, I'm sure Dr. Rentz will utilize them with this stipulate.
So you'll stipulate to them prior to Dr. Rentschler?
I will.
So you can use them with Dr. Rentschler?
I expected that I could because he certainly used them in his analysis and opinion. I shouldn't be subject to the entry of evidence in the defense case in chief. I understand I can use them in Dr. Rachler's testimony, but I want to use them with Dr. LaPosada. She's a medical doctor.
Would you
consider them for purposes of her opinion? I cannot understand.
So what do you want to ask her about them?
Are these the X-rays that you reviewed? Yes, that's it. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay. So go ahead.
And if that's all he's going to ask, I won't have a problem.
Okay. Yeah, I have no problem with that in that form.
That's it. Literally, these are the X-rays that we talked about a little bit earlier. Yes. This is the right hand. Yes. That's the arm. The forearm. Yes. That's the upper arm.
All right. So they're cumulative, but if they're coming in anyway, I will let you put them in.
Thank you.
All right. So the last thing is Dr. Rentschler. I need to hear argument from both sides. I have a new PowerPoint. So I'll hear both of you. Mr. Brennan, I'll hear you on your motion.
We've received the most recent update to Dr. Rentschler's PowerPoint. There are some additions, different analysis in that PowerPoint. This is within 24 hours of him testifying. There are opinions on page 6 and 8 of his May 7, 2025 report. And there are a number of numbers that we have objections to. Dr. Rentschler just generally shouldn't be allowed to express opinions and conclusions about what he thinks about the case or about other witnesses.
All right, so I'm looking, I think, at the new,
Do you have a copy of the new one?
from today, page 6. So what I have are just photos with measurements, so I don't know what the testimony that corresponds with those. I've read, obviously, the report of Dr. Rentschler from May 7th. That does not seem to detail everything, and that's no criticism. I'm just saying it's a scant report, so I don't know what the opinions are regarding these.
I'm sorry. Yep. Please.
I didn't want to speak over Mr. Brennan, I apologize. I just wanted to let the board know you cut that out now. We went through, based on Mr. Brennan's suggestions last night, and significantly edited the entire thing. Literally every single slide that we had a problem with. There were a couple that we disagree with, we left, but it's very, very.
I see that a lot of the hearsay has been removed.
Okay.
And I can identify this report as helpful.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
I can identify this report as helpful, the ones that were changed.
All right.
It made streamline this.
So what are you both I'm going to hear from Mr. Brennan first. What are you objecting to as the report now stands?
I have a most recent copy of the report now. So 9 through 27
Slides 9 through 27 are pages.
Slides 9 through 27 now have Dr. Rentschler identifying and attempting to match different abrasions with different holes in Mr. O'Keefe's sweatshirt. And so basically what he is trying to do is to suggest that there are a different amount of abrasions relative to the amount of holes, or perhaps he might want to testify about that the holes in the sweatshirt were in a different place on Mr. O'Keefe's arms than the abrasions. The reason why this is concerning is because there is no background for him regarding fabrics. This is a different and new opinion that we have not prepared or obtained an expert for. We probably have very little time to get somebody to rebut this analysis regarding fabrics. I don't see anything in his CV or his history that allows him to equate the number of holes in fabric with the number of abrasions on somebody's arm. It does not consider or account that there could be multiple wounds from one hole, or there could be holes that don't create wounds. So whatever the implication is going to be by Dr. Rentschler, we're not very sure, but it obviously would require some type of expertise, which I do not think that Dr. Rentschler has a foundation for. So those are 9 through 27 generally, and then specifically.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. Right there, you're watching live inside the courtroom. Karen Reed trial, week 8. You're looking live in there. And look, with Live Impact News, we will get you back there as soon as we can. I know they go back and forth with sidebars and recess and different things happening on the stand. But as soon as we get more information, or as soon as we have the time and have the opening, we'll get you back there to this trial. All right, so we want to shift gears. We want to come back home. We want to follow up on a story that we brought you here live as breaking news on the Live Impact stream on Friday afternoon. So here's what we got. It's an update on a death investigation at a former motel in Northeast Charlotte. Let me give you a little background on it in case you missed it. So a woman and a baby were found dead at a former motel in Northeast Charlotte on Friday. That's according to police. Now, Charlotte-Mecklenburg police responded to the call on Equipment Drive, which is just off West Sugar Creek Road and Interstate 85. Around noon. Medic confirmed it was on the scene and directed all questions to CMPD. This is what I'm reading right here from our website and what we have up now. The victims were found inside the Baymont Inn Motel that has been owned by multiple housing assistant nonprofit organizations, including Hill Charlotte and organization called HELP, which stands for Heal, Empower, Love, Protect. I want to bring in WCNC Charlotte's Walker Lawson. And the reason why I stopped right there, because as soon as we got to the breaking news, we caught you in the middle of the interview with the, would you say founder of HELP?
Yeah.
And he was upset. Walk us through what you got from that interview.
Yeah, so when we spoke to him on Friday, he was very frustrated with the fact that there had been a transition from Heal Charlotte to HELP, his organization. So Heal Charlotte ended up terminating their time there in April of 2025. They sent a letter out to all the people they were serving. We now know, according to the city of Charlotte, there were 60 out of 120 rooms that were used for Heal Charlotte. So they sent a letter out to everyone basically saying you need to vacate. We are shutting operations down. We will look at methods of relocation and whatnot. So he took over this property and he's trying to bring people in, and he says that he was having a hard time getting residents from Heal Charlotte to move out. So we then obtained a police report back in May where he was arrested for trying to get this woman to answer the door in the evening hours. She came to the door. It got into a loud altercation. The report then says he came in her room and was trying to get her to vacate, basically. And so he was arrested, and then he says that he was informed by the city and law enforcement that he could no longer check on these people and that he could not go in. So he was essentially trying to blame the fact that he couldn't go in and check on someone.
He was upset, I was saying, yeah.
Absolutely. He was very emotional and very upset. So we've kind of, there were a lot of gaps and questions about what are tenants' rights, what is the proper protocols and channels to follow, but also we kind of needed more detail on what exactly this process was to get people out of this site.
And before you start, I do want to say Hill Charlotte says, hey, we have nothing to do with this situation, because it was the former site. It was, and that's what we knew it as. So they say, hey, we're not, they released a statement on Sunday, hey, we're not a part in this investigation.
Yep. And even when you get to the site, you know, the Heal Charlotte sign is gone. The first thing my photog said when we got there was, oh, wow, the sign's gone. So then we kind of knew to start asking who's in charge of the property now, what's going on. So basically what we have learned, and you'll hear tonight from an attorney who speaks a little bit to what the rights are of a tenant and what that process looks like. But the city of Charlotte basically tells us that the master lease term with the property owner ended in April. Again, as I said, about 50 families were still housed there as of that time. They were then working through the process. Now, the city's contract with Heal Charlotte, according to them, ended in November of 2024. So they are no longer responsible for relocation efforts. That is all up to this Heal Charlotte to do so. So they kind of walked us through, and it's a very lengthy document that they sent us. So I'm over here like, mind me for looking down and scrolling through. But basically, they had said that the city did not designate the Baymont as an official mass displacement event, meaning that the city and crisis assistance did not directly coordinate any of the relocation efforts. So they said Heal Charlotte founder Greg Jackson managed the relocation of the families served by the program, and basically said that as of May 30th, which was last Friday, there were only 4 families that were still involved in the housing search. When we spoke to HELP, not to get mixed up with HEAL since they're kind of similar in wording, but HELP said that there was only one family left in the hotel as of Friday, and they were attributing it to being the family that had passed away in that we learned in that death investigation. So again, it's really we were trying to get some clear answers as to the process of Heal Charlotte's movement of getting people out and relocating, and the city obviously has answered some of that with saying that, you know, they said many individuals continued renting at the current location while others transitioned into permanent rental housing, and Heal Charlotte enacted a plan to actively explore a variety of housing solutions. So clearly there's been some process, but some of them, I guess, according to HELP, did not want to vacate. And obviously it can be, you know, they spoke to us a little bit about it's frustrating and difficult because these people lived there for a year or a certain amount of time, and a new group comes in and rules change. And that can be frightening because they're already seeking help in a program for being unhoused. So then they're concerned they're going to be unhoused again. And so there's just a lot of elements to it, and a lot of course, he said, she said, and whatnot. So,
and that's got to be the tough part about this story, because it's he said, she said, and you're trying to fill in the holes of what's happening.
And that was kind of the goal today, was to fill the holes of hearing from the city of Charlotte on where their contract stood, trying to hear from Heal Charlotte. We haven't heard back from them yet, but obviously we heard from them Sunday when they sent the statement out. You know, we have moved on from this property. You know, we've asked everyone to vacate, and we're doing the steps to try to get to relocation. And then, of course, for a group that's coming in and trying to work, you know, when we spoke to Cedric Dean, his concerns were there were families on this third floor that were living under Heal Charlotte that had kids. Obviously, we now know that a 1-year-old was in that room, but he didn't want what they were trying to work on and help, which is substance abuse mostly, to be under the same roof, kids being under the same roof of people seeking that. So he was trying to move them out. So tonight you'll hear from an attorney that kind of explains the process of what this looks like for tenants that are coming in, because again, these people don't own this hotel, they're just leasing. So there's a hotel owner, and they're doing this as a leasing group. So there's a lot of ins and outs, and it's kind of confusing for people that aren't following along, probably, because you kind of have to walk through step by step. Here is when they ask to vacate. Here's the policy. here's when so-and-so moved in, so there's really a timeline.
And you can see that location off the highway. It's very visible. So like if you've been here for any time, you probably, most likely, you've seen this hotel from the highway. You don't have to actually get off the exit to see this hotel.
It's right on the major thoroughfare.
I will ask, before I let you go, Walker, have we got an update on the circumstances around that woman and the baby?
Yeah, we still have not. We did send a request out per last update. When we had heard from law enforcement, they believed there was no foul play involved in this. So again, just trying to get a little bit more detail. Try to see if there's an update on the investigation today, but we haven't received an update thus far.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Walker Lawson sorting out a very complex story with a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, it took about 10 minutes to sort it all out.
It's a lot. We sit beside each other, so we were chatting a little bit about this story.
Yeah.
Walker, thank you for your time. And what time can folks catch
5
you?
and 6.
5 and 6.
Yes.
You can catch the story at 5 and 6. You can also read up more. There's a web article with a little bit more details in it on our website and in our news app. Walker, thank you for your time, man.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's shift gears now. So this is what happens with Live Impact News. When we reset, we take a beat for a minute. Do we want to go to the House Oversight?
For the 23andMe, yes.
Okay, all right. So let me set you guys up. So the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee is holding a hearing titled, quote, Securing Americans. And this is regarding privacy and national security concerns surrounding 23andMe's bankruptcy sale. A big talker. We've done a few stories here about those same concerns when it comes to 23andMe following its bankruptcy. So let's take you into this. Again, this is a House Oversight and Government Reform Committee holding a hearing about it. Let's take a listen in.
Those systems, we are really jeopardizing, I think, Americans' privacy.
Yeah, it seems like we decided to leave all our valuables in the car out where everybody can see it and the door is unlocked. That's what it feels like, but I digress. Our federal agencies are tasked with protecting cybersecurity and maintaining critical IT infrastructure that has been gutted by this administration. Almost 1,000 employees were fired or forced out of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, better known as CISA, weakening America's cyber defenses. Professor Hu, how will these workforce cuts jeopardize our nation's ability to protect Americans' data from cyber attacks?
Yeah, I think that we need to understand the critical role that these agencies and professionals, including CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency of the Department of Homeland Security, the role that they play in making sure that they safeguard all of our critical infrastructure. And without the proper staffing, we're throwing ourselves into a great deal of jeopardy. And I think that we also need to recognize the potential conflict of interest here of those that are trying to dismantle these cybersecurity systems.
Thank you so much. As another example, Trump's acting director of the Consumer Financial Bureau of Protection, which Trump is also trying to unconstitutionally dismantle, recently killed a bill that would have shielded Americans' sensitive information from data brokers. Instead of protecting Americans from companies that sell their address, email, phone number, financial data, political affiliation, religious beliefs, and other sensitive information, Trump is letting them run wild. I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a Wired article titled, quote, CFPB quietly kills rule to shield Americans from data brokers.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you so much. Congressional Democrats and American people are rightfully concerned that their sensitive information is being used, abused, and pooled without regard to our nation's privacy and information security laws. And we won't forget that just last week, Republicans made us wait more than half an hour while they scrambled to get their members into this committee room for a hearing that they called, yet did not bother to attend because Democrats had the votes to subpoena Elon Musk. If they agree with what Elon has done, why are they so scared to hear from Elon himself? Maybe now that Elon broke up with Donald, the majority will finally join us in demanding answers from Mr. Musk's time within this administration. Let me tell you something. We have seen that this administration has decided to go after students because of things that they have said. We have seen people get fired because they refuse to pledge their loyalty to this daggone cult. This is absurd, and we don't need people being targeted. They are weaponizing us while at the same time making us very vulnerable to those that want to hurt us the most. Now, listen, I never sent my DNA to anybody, so I don't know where I was stolen from. I'm going to tell you right now, I did not do it because I was concerned, because there is a history, especially when it comes to black folk, with taking our stuff. So I didn't do it. So now I sit here clueless about my heritage. But I tell you that having a hearing on this issue brings about all of those worst fears for me, though. The fact that our data is just out there, and our personal biographical information. So I am just going to ask any and everyone around the science world, so that we can make sure that we move forward in this country. When it comes to science, we got to make sure that we are protecting people's information as we are trying to move forward, whether it's AI, whether we're talking about things such as our genes or otherwise. Thank you so much, and I yield. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Chair recognizes Mr. Gill from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for holding this hearing on a very important topic, which is data privacy. But I've got a couple other things that I want to talk about while we're here related to this. Miss Wojcinski, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, Wojcicki.
Wojcicki, okay. Thank you for being here and taking the time. 23andMe has really, over the past few years, gone out of its way to show how woke it is. And one of the things that it's been promoting, amongst many others, is a variety of different pronouns. Here's a tweet that you guys put out in June of 2021. I just want to ask you, what does E mean as a pronoun? It's E.
To be honest, I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you know what M means as a pronoun?
I'm also not sure.
Okay. Don't you think it's important to know what these mean? You guys are, in this post, you wrote, or somebody on your comms team wrote, that using the correct pronouns impacts trans people's health, can reduce the risk of depression and suicide. That's a pretty serious claim. It seems like if you're going to demand people use these pronouns, you would know what they mean, right?
Mm-hmm. I delegate. 23andMe had a lot of people. We had 6,
Right.
7.
You were CEO though, right?
I was CEO, but it doesn't mean I can oversee every single post.
Well, this is a very, very politically charged post that you guys put out. I would think that you would have a view on that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us what is the difference between Z and Z? One of them is ZE and one is XE.
I'm not up to speed on that.
Okay. Does it concern you that not understanding this might increase the risk of depression and suicide amongst trans people?
I support my research team that felt that, it's important for us to be inclusive of everybody, and it was very much grounded.
I agree, but it doesn't seem very inclusive if you don't know what they mean, right?
I respect the social team and the research team that put that post together.
But you don't know what any of these pronouns mean, but you guys are promoting it.
I assume it's different ways people like to be referred to.
What about here, HIR? What does that mean?
I don't know either.
What about fair, FAER?
Again.
You'd agree these are pretty unusual things, wouldn't you?
I think they represent a lot of the diversity in this country.
Okay, well, I'm trying to understand the diversity, and I'm asking you what they mean. I'll give you one more chance. Do you know what Z here, Z, Zim, fair, EM mean?
I do not.
Okay. Does that concern you that you don't know it? According to your own post here, understanding these and using the correct pronouns would improve your product for trans and non-binary people. It seems like this is directly related to the product.
Again, it was the team, the social team and the research team that felt strongly around putting.
Well, you were CEO, so you can't pawn off responsibility to somebody else here. What about bathroom access? On 23andMe's website, I've got it up here on my phone. There's a 23andMe blog, and there's a little subheading about bathroom access. Is it still 23andMe's official position that men should be using women's restrooms?
23andMe anymore.
Okay. Was it while you were at 23andMe?
I think we had non-gendered bathrooms as well.
Well, that's not what this is referring to. This is referring to laws that seek to force, in your own words, force trans individuals to use a restroom that does not correspond to their gender identity. Is it, while you were there, was it 23andMe's position that men should be using women's restrooms?
I think our position was just to make sure that we're applicable to laws.
That this isn't in reference. This is actually against laws that would stop people from using the wrong restroom.
Yeah.
So this is actually against laws.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Right there in the top right corner, that is President Trump leaving Joint Base Andrews. He is headed to Fort Bragg, where he will talk with thousands of soldiers and get a first-hand look at a demonstration there. You see him waving, holding up his fists. He's entering Air Force One. He is scheduled to speak at 4 p.m. And again, he is expected to talk with thousands of soldiers there at Fort Bragg. Now, the president, again, leaving Joint Base Andrews, he actually posted this morning. We took a press conference this morning, or I guess a gaggle of sorts, inside the Oval Office. And he posted this morning on Truth Social, quote, "We'll be going to Fort Bragg today. Big speech, amazing crowd. See you later." So this event comes as North Carolina Democrats, veterans, and military families also gathered in Fayetteville earlier this morning. We carried that here on Live Impact News this morning during our 9 to 11 stream, and they spoke out against federal cuts and how they have affected veterans. Anderson Clayton, the chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party, and other speakers expressed concern about, quote, substantial cuts to the Department of Veteran Affairs and cuts to the Toxic Exposure Fund, which cares for veterans exposed to burn pits, Agent Orange, and other toxic substances during the time they served our country. Again, that is the pushback and those folks who protested and spoke out before President Trump's arrival. Again, he is just boarded Air Force One, leaving Joint Base Andrews, headed to Fort Bragg. He is expected to speak at 4. We will have that for you here on WCNC Plus. So that's why it's important to keep the TV on, because this is where you will get the chance to see President Trump speak, address those soldiers, thousands of soldiers, again. So that is that live look there on the top right of your screen. We'll keep it up as they take off, but for now, we want to get back to this hearing over concerns regarding 23andMe's bankruptcy. So let's take a listen in.
Or for consumer exploitation, including by data brokers and advertising and market analytics providers. Our nation's federal laws have not kept up with technological advances or the potential threats from malicious and foreign actors. Americans need strong oversight and stronger laws to bolster our national security, our private security, and our privacy protections to make sure that our sensitive data remains safe. If Americans were scared about what 23andMe might do with their data, they'd be really scared if they thought about what DOJ and the Trump administration are already doing with this data. Congressional Republicans cannot continue to ignore the Trump administration's blatant attacks on and destruction of critical security and privacy protections across the government. This Trump administration has conducted mass terminations of critical federal IT experts, chief information officers, and other technology professionals, while also removing many of the inspector generals that are meant to ensure good processes. DOJ, meanwhile, has seized unauthorized access of Americans' data, disregarding long-standing cybersecurity practices and existing data privacy laws. And thanks to a brave whistleblower we met here on the Oversight Committee, Democrats learned that DOJ is reportedly creating a master database of sensitive information from across all federal agencies in apparent violation of existing privacy and cybersecurity protections that ensure that this data cannot be exploited or misused. But here on this committee, unfortunately, the majority is just ignoring this all and sacrificing our rights to data privacy, all to shield Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and their cronies from accountability. And again, I want to focus on, reiterate the fact that so many of our colleagues in this hearing focused on trans issues. They attack the trans community. Not sure what that's about when we're talking about privacy. We face real and clear threats to our privacy. This hearing raised some of them, but we ought to be thinking about the threats to our federally held privacy as well. Congress has to open our eyes and address the threats in front of the American people much better. I yield back.
Before I close, Ms. Wasicki, there are news reports that and rumors that Oracle and Executive Chairman Larry Ellison is the backer in your bid to acquire 23andMe. Are you aware of these rumors?
So I've read some news reports.
Is Oracle the company backing?
The current bid is exclusively from me.
Is exclusively what?
Is exclusively from me.
All right. So you're buying your own company out of bankruptcy exclusively?
I'm trying very hard.
Wow. Very good. Okay. Well, I think that this was a very productive hearing. I want to thank our witnesses who are here today. I think it's very clear there's bipartisan concern that Americans' sensitive genetic data could end up in the hands of bad actors. We've heard commitment from the two witnesses from 23andMe today that that will not happen. We'll be watching that very closely, and as the bankruptcy proceeding moves forward and more information is known about the state of the company, then this committee will continue to conduct its investigation and continue to be transparent with the American people on what we find and do everything in our ability to see that America's private data is protected from bad actors. So with that, all members have 5 legislative days within which to submit materials and additional written questions for the witnesses, which will be forwarded to the witnesses. If there's no further business without objection, the committee stands adjourned. Thank you all.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. That House committee hearing just wrapping up, addressing concerns surrounding 23andMe. They filed for bankruptcy. Also, at this hour, President Trump is leaving Joint Base Andrews. You see it right there, Air Force One, leaving, headed toward Fort Bragg. The president is expected to address soldiers there, folks there at Fort Bragg, ahead of the Army's 250th birthday this weekend. So President Trump is leaving at Fort Bragg. He's expected to speak around 4, and actually posted on Truth Social. We say 4, but you know,
well, he was expected to leave at 12:30.
Yeah.
It's now 1:30, so we can imagine things
that is also
pushed a little bit.
Yeah. So this afternoon into this evening, we'll hear from President Trump at Fort Bragg. All right, so we want to shift back. We want to come back here at home. So we are following a breaking news story. Let me say developing story. And this has happened minutes before we got on stream. So it's an incident at the McDonald's on South Tryon Street. So here's what we have on our web article. I want to read it to you. So several people were hurt today after officials said a, quote, mace-like substance was used at a McDonald's in South Charlotte. Medics said around 11:30 a.m. it responded to the restaurant along South Tryon Street. This is video from the scene. This South Tryon Street near Billy Graham Parkway. The details about what led to the assault were not immediately clear. The agency confirmed 3 people were taken to the hospital for evaluation, while 9 people were treated at the scene and not taken to the hospital. Again, that is the information. This is a look at the scene. A scary situation there for folks there, even though we're working to get a little bit more details. We also heard from a customer who was there at the time of this incident. We want to run her full interview, what she had to say, and hear what she described what happened. Let's take a listen in.
I heard a ruckus, and I turned around, and 2 employees were getting ready to fight, and she called her whole family up here, and the girl come out with a big can of bear mace and sprayed everybody. Kids, grown-ups, employees. Yeah.
And you said she called her family up. Was this another employee who called her family here to McDonald's?
Yeah, to jump on the one employee.
What were they fighting about?
I don't have a clue. I think she said she just asked her to drop some steaks, and she said she had an attitude. Something silly. Yeah.
So did you see people running out after they got sprayed?
Yeah, they're running out and holding their eyes. I actually got a gallon of water out of my car, and they were running over, and then we got milk because it works better, and they were just rubbing it out of their eyes. Kids were crying and screaming and wiping their faces.
Did this seem to be just one person who sprayed the mace?
Yeah, she had one huge can. Yeah.
And was this the employee who
Yeah,
sprayed
she
the mace?
works here. Yeah.
Why did she call her family up here?
I don't know. They just all come up here and gonna jump on her. Instead of handling her herself, she called her whole family, and they was chasing her, and she went to run back in the door, and the girl was right behind her, and she just turned around and got all of them. Yeah. So.
And who was in the mix? Who was in the crowd? Was it just customers, or was this employees? Who got sprayed?
Employees, one of the girls' whole family, I guess. And I don't know if there was any pedestrians over at the door. Yeah, there was. There was DoorDash was here because he's got it in his face.
And this was the sprayer was not the employee who called her family. It was the other employee.
It was the other one. Yes, she got her, the whole family.
You said kids were sprayed as well.
Yeah, there was some kids in the car. They was out of the car when she come out with the can. It was like a big ball of dust. It was everywhere.
What was going through your mind when you were seeing all that?
I was thinking that I have a lung disease and that I didn't want it to get anywhere near me. I was moving away from the place.
About what area did this happen?
At the inside of the door right there, because she was still spraying as she was going back in the door.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And that was a woman who was there at the scene, a customer. Again, I just want to reiterate the developing story there at the McDonald's in South Charlotte, South Tryon Street to be exact. Several people were hurt after a mace-like substance was used at the McDonald's there. 3 people confirmed to be taken to the hospital for evaluation. 9 others treated at the scene. So we will continue to keep an eye on that story, and as more information comes along, we will be sure to update you here on our website, on our app, and also here on WCNC Plus. All right, let's totally shift gears now. Let's talk about some weather. Let's take a look outside. This is a look at the ballpark in Gastonia, the home of the Ghost Peppers.
Yep.
The Gastonia Ghost Peppers. Let me put some respect on their name. Haven't been rooting for them lately because
I know.
Because
You've been breaking hearts everywhere in Gastonia.
You know, I got to root
Not
for the
even
home
cheering
team.
for the team,
I am loyal to the soil,
Yeah, I know.
and that soil is in the Piedmont Triad.
I'm also ready today. I know that they are away today. I Googled it beforehand, so I wasn't going to get grilled. I wasn't going to get tested.
I was about to ask you,
in
when
front
did
of
they
everybody.
play today? And I'm glad you jumped in and said that. Okay, all right, she's ready. All right.
I'm ready.
More hard questions. So Becca, why is it so hot? No, I'm done. I'm done with the hard questions. That's a beautiful shot. Look, I complain about it being hot. That's just the circumstances.
Yeah, and you know
the
what?
summer.
Some sunshine has broken out. Previously, it was all
I'm thankful for
cloudy.
that.
So, and it is heating up out there. So next time Carlene goes for a walk, it's going to be a warm one.
It's going to be warmer.
melt.
It's going to be warmer.
Yes, for sure. But that heat and humidity is also going to aid in a couple of thunderstorm chances for tonight. All of us are pretty much under a low-end severe weather threat, kind of like what we were for yesterday. Main concern going to be damaging wind gusts and lightning, especially if people do have any outdoor activities later on today.
Welcome to, technically, we're not summer, right? It's late
Technically not. Technically, yes. We are in meteorological summer,
Yeah.
which is based on the climate months, basically the hottest months of the year. But June 20th is the official summer solstice.
Welcome to pre-summer here in the Carolinas.
Yes, it is heating up out there. But you know what is also happening tonight is the full moon. June's full moon is the strawberry moon, and that name comes from the Native American tribes in the Northeast who were harvesting wild strawberries in the early portions of summer. This one is going to appear much lower, actually the lowest since 2006. That's almost 2 decades. It's going to appear lower with some golden and orange hues possible, especially aided with a little bit of wildfire smoke out there. So full moon especially peaks around 3:44 this morning. It's going to be highest in the sky closer to around midnight. Moon set just before 6 o'clock. I do think we'll have clouds hanging around this evening, and nighttime hours should start to clear though around midnight. Should be fair viewing conditions. Not going to be totally clear, but there will be breaks in between the clouds if you do want to get your camera out and take a look. Live view outside, we've got a mix of sunshine and clouds out there. This is a mix of high and low cloudiness. You can see some of those high clouds making way for a little bit of filtered sunshine, but it is warming up out there. Many of us now into the 80s, and today will likely feature a mix of sunshine and clouds, definitely above average temperatures, with another round of strong to severe storms possible later on this evening. And looking ahead to a warm and humid week ahead with pretty much daily storm chances in the forecast. So for today, afternoon highs, probably not as warm as yesterday, middle to upper 80s. Yesterday we did 89, and that's pretty much what we will be feeling like later on today, with storm chances returning closer to around 3-4 o'clock. All of us pretty much, except the mountains, encompass under a low severe weather threat by the Storm Prediction Center. This is basically a level 1 out of 5, meaning an isolated storm could turn severe, containing some strong to damaging wind gusts that is upwards of around 50 to 60 miles per hour. And with those high winds, could see some down trees or down power lines. So that is going to be the concern going into tonight. Right now, Doppler radar, you can see lots more shower and storm activity down to the south and east of us, dealing with a couple of downpours now in and around the area, portions over towards the I-40 corridor, Hickory as well as Alexander County, maybe getting in on some of those, Burke and Caldwell. Everywhere else is pretty dry. You can see a heavy downpour just outside of our viewing area that is east of Chesterfield County, not going to be impacting us. And this is all drifting up to the northeast due to this stationary front that will only continue to gradually move through the area over the next several hours. As it does so, gonna bring the chance for a couple of storm chances today, tomorrow, likely lingering through the end of the work week. So Futurecast really showing these storms firing up after 3-4 o'clock. This is mainly gonna start right around that I-40 corridor. We're talking about Hickory, Statesville, eventually then making its way into the Charlotte Metro closer to around 6-7 o'clock. You can see those oranges and reds. That is heavy rainfall, frequent lightning, and the potential for one of these storms to turn severe as well. This is going to be a pretty slow moving system, so we could still be tracking rain in our most southern counties right around midnight before drying off by early Wednesday morning. Again, may have some stubborn clouds for that full moon tonight, but definitely worthwhile if you are up late tonight into early tomorrow morning. We'll continue the rain chances pretty much through this week ahead. Going to be a little bit more isolated for Wednesday, really only tracking a stray shower thunderstorm in the forecast. Better storm chances will likely come over towards this weekend, and it's going to be hit or miss. So not everyone will be seeing them. Very much a summer-like pattern with that warmth and humidity. We don't see any 90-degree temperatures on here, mainly in the middle to upper 80s, but I can tell you now that it is going to be feeling like the 90s, even if it doesn't show it here. Welcome to June in the Carolinas.
It's I was at a grocery store yesterday, and the cashier said, "Hey, how are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm hot," and she said, "Wait, it doesn't get better?" I'm like, no, it doesn't.
No, it gets worse.
And she asked me, she said, are you from here? I'm like, well, yeah, I'm from the Carolinas. She was like, and you're still not used to it? I'm like, I don't think you get used to it. I think you just tolerate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, look, but I will take the sunshine. I will take all of that. I like it. I complain about it, but I complain about it when it's cold.
Yeah, you just gotta find some ways to cool off, Nick. Maybe go to the pool. Maybe skip a run.
Yeah.
This is peer pressure. Wait.
Well,
Wait. I'm on
Sorry,
attack right now.
we all ganged up on you here. That's our bad. That's our
Maybe
bad.
you'll feel better.
I don't feel good at all right now. Oh, man. Becca Birdsall, thank you for your time. Before you go, I got to make sure to mention Brad has his own show.
Right.
Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich has his own show. He will be, we launched it yesterday, the weather impact stream here on WCNC Plus at 6:30. Man, it's just an excuse. You have no excuses at this point.
Right.
Leave your TV on WCNC Plus, live impact news. We're streaming all the
You want
time.
to be here.
And who doesn't want to hear from Brad
Yeah.
for an extra 30 minutes at
That's
least?
right.
And it's talking about some
Very
cool
interesting
stuff.
man. There's a lot,
Very
lot
interesting.
of knowledge in that head.
I've learned a lot from Brad
That's right.
being here. Brad is pretty funny too. I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Yeah, he's funny and he's smart and
Yeah.
he knows so much about weather. You will definitely learn something, especially with this extension of a 30-minute show.
Yeah.
No filter on Brad. That's what we like to see.
He could just go for 30 minutes. Brad, Becca, thank you. Please tune in to Brad at 6:30.
Yes.
Look, it's that time of day. Becca, thank you for your time. All right, again, 6:30 p.m. Make sure you lock in, you tune in here on WCNC Plus live weather impact at 6:30 with Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. All right, what do we want to go to next, Carlene? We got a couple of things we can go to. Okay, let's go to this. I see what you're clicking on.
Sure.
This came in just sort of like this McDonald story before our stream. We were able to get this, and we want to bring it to you. A press conference regarding a former CMS educator charged with child sex crimes in Missouri. So Cedric Gerald, Missouri middle school principal, is accused of child sex crimes. He was a teacher with CMS. That's according to, we did some digging, that's according to CMS records. Police in Missouri are asking for more victims to come forward. Some victims have come forward. And today we actually got a chance to hear from the lawyers that are representing 6 victims from multiple school districts who were sexually, let me make sure I get this information right, sexually abused by former middle school principal Cedric Gerald. Again, he was a former teacher within Charlotte Mecklenburg schools. Again, those attorneys for the victims spoke today. 6 of those victims spoke today. They're in the St. Louis, Missouri area. Let's take a listen into that press conference.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Do we want to do some audio testing?
Yeah, just keep talking for us.
Okay. Hi, good morning. How's everyone doing? Happy that you're here.
Maybe you could give us your names and spelling. Yeah, that would.
My name's Mary Simon. I'm an attorney at the Simon Law Firm. It's M-A-R-Y, Mary, and Simon is S-I-M-O-N.
My name's Grant Boyd. I'm with the O'Brien Law Firm, Grantboyd.
And whoever speaks can just stand right in the middle of the podium, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, just so we all microphones. Yeah.
Does it help if I talk a little bit louder?
Yes, sure. Yeah.
Is that more? Should I say my name again, or is that good enough? Well, thank you all so much for being here. Today we just wanted to touch base on a set of cases that Grant and I are working on. You know, this includes a really sensitive topic. We're very proud to be able to represent so far 6 victims in a set of cases that we're currently looking into claims against, Riverview School District and cases involving some pretty serious allegations against the principal. And at this point, we're really just gathering documents, talking to witnesses, and getting as much information as we can to evaluate what claims we can bring.
Yeah, so far, like Mary said, we represent 6 victims of this gentleman, Mr. Gerald, that span over multiple districts, not just Riverview Gardens, but also Ferguson Florissant, and we are also working on uncovering information that suggests that this spans all the way back to his employment in North Carolina as well, where he worked for at least 2 school districts in North Carolina. We encourage anyone and everyone who has information about this person that's reported a concern, that's seen something concerning, or that may have been victimized themselves to come forward. We are able to protect their identities as much as possible and talk to them on a confidential basis to where that they don't have to worry about all of their personal details being sent around, that they can talk to us in a private setting and get that information to us so we can do our best to not only help our clients, but potentially also help them. And that when we see such a broad sweeping system of abuse by one person that spans over such a long period of time, typically we see that we are not yet in contact with everybody, but that we want to make sure that as many people as possible can be helped because they deserve that help. And this person deserves to be held accountable. In situations like this, there is so much power in numbers and helping hold an abuser accountable, but also helping hold districts accountable for allowing something like this to happen and not being more proactive, failing to take the proper reactive steps when concerns are brought to them. In cases like this, it's very frustrating because you feel like some of these districts are doing just the bare minimum in our eyes to vet employees as well as look into certain situations, or in their hiring process, they're just doing the bare minimum and not looking into somebody's background. And the information we have suggests that in this case, had districts looked into this person's background, that this person should not have been hired. So, as Mr. Gerald phrased it at his bond hearing, he has a sickness. And our information is that had been going on for a long period of time. And so we're frustrated that more is not being done by these districts to identify these perpetrators ahead of time before children are abused, or importantly, before more children are abused after one already is. No children should be abused, but we need to do more to stop it from happening over and over and over again. And the question is just going to be, when are we going to do more? When are we going to want to be better? And when are we going to do better by the children of our community? So, any questions? I'm happy to take them.
Do we have a time frame of, when we believe some of these abuses, your cases of abuse may have happened?
Yeah, so far, 5 of the incidents are from Riverview Gardens when he was employed there. We have one client at Ferguson Florissant School District that was a student there. Like I said, we're looking into allegations in North Carolina as well, which spans back quite a considerable period of time. I believe the early 2000s was when he was in North Carolina.
And are the victims that you're representing, are they included in the charges from May, or are these new victims?
So some are not included. I believe we represent the majority of what we call the charged victims. So.
Okay. Do you know how many?
I believe 3 of the 4.
Okay.
Age range?
Essentially school age. I mean, like I said, the abuse spans multiple decades, or the allegations of what we're looking into spans multiple decades. But right now we're looking at, without getting into too many details about a specific client that could potentially lead to their public identification, we know when he was employed with Riverview, we know when he was employed at Ferguson Florissant, and in what capacities, at what schools, if that helps reverse engineer it for you.
Since he was with Charlotte Mecklenburg the longest, have you guys been able to find any victims there?
We are looking into allegations that have come out of North Carolina. At this time, we need to vet them before we say anything publicly about them, but we are actively looking into that. We are working and getting in contact with those school districts. Communication should be going out today, if not yesterday, notifying those districts that we are looking into them.
Do you know whether or not law enforcement in North Carolina is investigating him in either one of those school districts?
At that time, we wouldn't want to comment on any investigations for potential jeopardizing them, but that would probably be a question for either local law enforcement or the North Carolina law enforcement. I believe he was employed with Washington County as well as Charlotte Mecklenburg when it comes to North Carolina.
Another question for you. Could you speak to, you talked about victimizing these children and how heinous that is, the impact that it has on them in your discussions, how awful is this, and what kind of impact does it have on these children to be victimized by an adult in this position?
I could probably talk for hours about that. I mean, it's the impact that child sexual abuse has on children survivors isn't just a momentary thing like this, similar to cutting your arm where it heals and over a small period of time. It is typically a lifelong wound that will rear its head over the course of your life multiple times. Unfortunately, it can have tragic consequences beyond just what we think of, can lead to very serious mental health concerns, as well as, unfortunately, at times, suicide. But it's when you have a person like this in a position of power, where you can access children so easily, where the children want to trust them. I mean, everyone wants to feel endeared to their educators, that they have a personal relationship with them, that it's not just this sterile professional environment. But so to have that person then violate that trust, it can influence that child's life for the rest of their life when they come across other situations where there's a person in a position of authority, a person in a position of trust, where all of a sudden now the default setting is distrust. Is this person going to be like the last one? Is this person going to be like the perpetrator? Who else is going to hurt me? And so it is a lifelong thing to deal with. And that's why this is so, we need to be more vigilant, because once this wound is inflicted, it's not as simple as stitching it up. It's going to take a lot more work and a lot more time to heal, and usually decades, if you're ever able to fully heal. And that's why we need to be doing more.
What's the most egregious part of this case as you guys continue building your cases?
The most egregious part, obviously the abuse, right? What this guy did to these children. I mean, that's always going to be the most horrific thing. I mean, childhood sexual abuse is so abstract to all of us. We think it's only something we hear about every now and then on the news, but surely that's not happening around us, right? Like, no, that wouldn't happen in our community. But unfortunately, it does. It's way too pervasive. I mean, if it tells you anything, we have a whole practice based on it. And that's, not one or two cases. We have a lot of cases that are constantly coming in. So it's, the mere act of it's egregious. It's unnatural. It's irrational. It's illogical that someone would do that to a child. But the other part of that is looking at the people that were supposed to be preventing this, the people that let this dog off the leash. What were they doing? And why are we giving people so many breaks? Why are we giving them the benefit of the doubt? Why are we saying, oh, well, I don't want to point the finger. I don't want to have an uncomfortable conversation. That make me feel a little weird to say, hey, we have a concern about how you approach this situation or how you're interacting with this student or interacting with this child. Because of that, that's so egregious, not just say, I'm okay being a little uncomfortable for a bit, to make sure that child will never be uncomfortable. So that's equally as egregious. It's horrific. And that's what's leading to this kind of stuff, that mentality.
What message do you have for possible, let's say a victim is watching this and they're afraid to come forward, what message do you have for them?
That so often there's this very common conception in the survivor community that you should feel shamed or fearful or afraid or that embarrassed, that people are going to judge you. I think, and doing this kind of work, helping somebody feel, you find that people you don't have those experiences. You find a community of support, and that we are able to do things to take those concerns into account to where you're not going to be publicly identified because of something that we're doing, that you can have a confidential, private setting to discuss it, discuss your options, discuss whether you want to come forward more, whether you want to participate, but at least be heard out in a setting where we couldn't tell anyone even if we wanted to, if you tell us not to. So I think that those people that are questioning, well, do I want to, just pick up the phone and try. And so worst case scenario is you decide you don't want to be a part of this and you don't want to go forward. But I think you'll find a very secure, safe environment where you can feel supported and you can feel like those fears that you have will not come to fruition.
So have the lawsuits been filed? When do you plan to file them? And against what, just two school districts now, or?
As of right now, we're looking at filing against Riverview Gardens as well as Ferguson Florissant. We anticipate that the initial filings will happen anytime over the next 30 to 60 days. One of the other things that we'll need to file is charges of discrimination with the Missouri Commission on Human Rights. And so we're working on getting those on file. Usually when they're with the commission, they're not public filings because those are handled within that commission. But those eventually typically lead to a right to sue notice that allows us to then file those claims in court. However, it's about at least a 6-month process until we get those right to sue notices. So, but that's not going to hold us up from being able to pursue other types of claims, such as federal law claims as well.
Earlier, you mentioned school districts that they need to do better to vet their employees. Are these two school districts, are they potentially at fault for something else? Like, were they aware of his behavior and just turned a blind eye?
Yeah, so we're investigating what they knew. I mean, certainly with the numerosity, the idea that somebody could pull this off and abuse this many children from one district without a single red flag going up, without someone not seeing something, just kind of defies logic. But the information we have suggests that people were raising concerns that there were red flags present, and either they were being ignored or swept under the rug, or not proper reactions were happening to those red flags. So it's not just the hiring and the vetting processes, but also we believe that there's information suggesting that they weren't appropriately responding to concerning information.
How hard did you have to look for that stuff from Charlotte? So, like, in other words, how hard would local school districts had to have, what kind of diligence would they have to have done?
Yeah, so we're working on figuring out exactly what was available to the districts at those, from the North Carolina districts, to the extent that that information pans out as viable routes. So right now it's just information that we're looking into and attempting to vet and confirm. But, that's going to be a question for these districts. Commonly, all too often, there's not a lot of, it doesn't seem that there's a lot of information sharing between these districts other than, the person was employed there and here's their, they're employed here for this time to this time and here was their position and maybe a few other things. But, it's unclear how often entire employment files are shared, how often disciplinary-esque type things are shared, or things like where there are concerns raised about an educator's interactions with children, certainly inappropriate ones. But it's our position that that specific type of information, concerns about inappropriate contact with children or conduct with children, should be shared, period. So, and that's districts that are able to withhold that information and not pass it on to other districts essentially kneecaps that future district's ability to protect children. So, and not really getting down in the weeds or trying to, as that future district, calling the previous district and saying, hey, we need to know X, Y, and Z, at least trying to find those answers. That's also a concern. Why are you not asking those questions if you're not? So, and what did you do to try to drill down to make sure this person was safe to be around children, to make sure that they didn't have anything in their background?
Is that a flaw in the system? Not only districts don't seem to share information, but even, on a state-to-state level, there's no system that shows, oh, this person left in good standing, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly information like, this person left in good standing, or they might be eligible for rehire. To the extent that there are not protocols in place allowing districts to share a vast amount of information, and in my opinion, they should be allowed to share any and all information whatsoever about an educator that is seeking employment at another place with children. So if that's not the standard, if that's not allowed, then that is a statewide failure and a systemic failure. And I don't, whether it's federal law, state law, you name it, but I don't know why we would go out of our way to protect people that are potentially abusing children. It's real simple. If you don't have anything to hide, what's the big deal?
Question for the both of you to answer. Could you explain a little bit about the difference in the civil court system versus the criminal court system for victims in these situations?
want to start, I can
Sure.
pick up after.
Yeah, so in the criminal justice system, that is about, exactly what it sounds, crime and punishment. So where the state of Missouri is the one leading the charge, or, federal prosecutors, if there's federal crimes being charged, but they're trying to prove that this person committed a crime beyond a reasonable doubt for purposes of criminal convictions, sex offender registry, prison time, fines, things like that. So, and those prosecutors, while they do have kind of an unspoken duty to advocate for victims, really they're advocating for the community, and victims are part of that community. But the prosecutor's duty is to fight on behalf of their jurisdiction. In the civil justice system, we represent the victims, and that is pursuing justice on that front for things like financial compensation, pushing for changes potentially to policies and structure of how these processes are done, how hiring processes are done, what types of things should be looked into, what type of screening takes place. So pushing for change both on compensating victims for what they've been through, but also trying to get the right things put in place to make sure this doesn't happen again.
And I also think similarly along those lines, it was asked what you would say to someone who maybe is afraid to come forward. And I reiterate all the things that Grant said. And in addition, it's so sensitive. It's such a sensitive topic that I also would just encourage anyone in that position to talk to anyone they trust. Just one phone call to anyone you trust. Your first phone call doesn't have to be to an attorney. So just talking to anyone about that, I think, is important. And also, we're incredibly proud of not only our clients, but anyone who does take that initial step, because it is so daunting. And additionally, in the civil court system, as Grant was explaining, that's another hope that we hope that comes out of this too, is that there will be changes that are made. So it's not something where we're handling these cases in a vacuum, but when we're handling these cases and talking about them in rooms where people are listening, maybe it's not just these school districts, but other school districts are listening, thinking we need to make sure that we're looking at all these same policies and procedures as well. And that's something that we're very proud to be on the civil side of it too. Both are equally important, the criminal and the civil side, but that's one thing that we also hope comes out of this, is that there are changes not only made for these children, but other children, and that will, make it safer for everyone else.
Is there anything that either of you could say about what specifically the victims are accusing Gerald of?
I think at this time it's there's sexual abuse that was physical in nature as well as non-physical in nature, and to not jeopardize any component of the criminal investigation or that criminal process, we're not going to say too much now about that. That'll certainly be detailed in any kind of filings that we have, to the extent it's necessary to put all those details in there, or to pick which finite details we put in there. I said any filings we would be seeking to keep our clients' names protected from any kind of public disclosure. So that I think right now we can limit it to that it's not just physical in nature, that there was plenty of non-physical sexual abuse as well that Mr. Gerald was engaging in with children.
Like what we saw in the charges, communicating with them through social media, texting them, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and there were that's, I'd say, like the 30,000 foot view. Really what the contents of communications were, whether they were verbal or over electronic. What he was alleged to have requesting that these children engage in or do with him, that was, when I say non-physical sexual abuse, that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. It's not just, sending a message over Snapchat, hey, what's up? It's talking about sexual acts and potentially engaging in sexual acts.
Besides using his position of power, have you gathered information about whether or not he was paying money to students to do things?
We're certainly looking into a exchange, if you will, where certain benefits or privileges were being provided to children in exchange for engaging in sexual acts. It's very classic grooming behavior and classic child sexual predator behavior to engage like gift giving or kind of like a quid pro quo. So yes, we are looking into those allegations.
there any evidence that was he using personal devices to do this, or was he using school-issued equipment, computers, phones, things like that?
We're still looking into exactly the broad scope of devices that he was using.
All right, everybody good?
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. That is, or was rather, the press conference from earlier today. Those were the attorneys in St. Louis representing six victims from multiple school districts who they say were sexually abused. And they are accusing former middle school principal Cedric Gerald. Now, Gerald has ties to CMS. He's a former teacher at CMS. Again, that was a press conference from St. Louis, those attorneys representing those six victims as that investigation continues. All right, we want to take you now to L.A. That is L.A. Mayor Karen Bass. And she's talking about a major story there, the L.A. immigration protests and some of the violence there and the arrests there. So more demonstrations over immigration raids are expected today in Los Angeles. About 700 Marines were mobilized to help support National Guard members assigned to federal buildings in Los Angeles. Signs of weakened violence in L.A. remain there. Businesses were broken glass, looted shelves, and graffiti, all within the downtown area. And you've most likely seen a lot of these images here on WCNC Plus, also on social media. And one of the biggest news and controversies is California announced a lawsuit against President Donald Trump over federalization of the National Guard. Again, a big talker here. Let's take a listen in. It looks like Mayor Bass is taking questions right now. Let's take a listen into what she's saying.
He was here last week, and so I met with them directly. We did actually a panel with them, and we were talking then about how vast our city is and how if something happens in one area, it doesn't mean it's happening all around the city. So it's a little ironic we were having that conversation. I have not talked to them directly since then. Needless to say, my focus has been on keeping Angelenos safe and protected here.
And the second question, the curfew idea, obviously, that happened many years ago with the Rodney King situation, and it did calm things down. What would the parameters be? Would it be a localized, limited area type curfew? At least what you're thinking right now.
What I'm thinking is yes, because there's no need for it to be anything other than that. It's just important to reiterate that what is happening is not happening. It's not even happening in the entire downtown area. So there would be no need for a citywide curfew. But again, this is just preliminary discussions. It's one thing to say a curfew, then you have to enforce it.
Mayor Bass, what message do you give to businesses in these impacted areas, just on what steps you're going to take to help them, still keep their doors open and not have to worry about the graffiti or the looting?
Well, I wish I could say and not have to worry about, but we're coming together. I spoke to business leaders this morning saying that we need to come together, not just to talk, but come together with a plan on how we're going to repair the damage that has taken place and understand that it's going to take everybody. It's going to take the private sector, obviously the city. The city workers are already out there, and they've been out there for hours, and they've been out there for the last couple of days. But I know if you've driven around downtown, you know how massive this is. So the city workers are going to need assistance as well, but also, general citizens. I think everybody is concerned about downtown. I think people need to come from all different parts of the city to join us in repairing the damage that has taken place.
Mayor Bass, I wanted to ask you, what's your explanation of why this is happening in Los Angeles? I live in Miami, I've been all over the country. I haven't seen this in any other place. Why is it happening here? Many people think that Los Angeles is a pretty brave city to say things that others are ignoring. Why here? Why Why did it happen?
To be honest with you, I don't know, especially considering the relationship that was developing before this. The only thing I can think of, and that's why I keep going back to, I think we're an experiment. Because if you can do this to the nation's second largest city, maybe the administration is hoping that this will be a signal to everybody everywhere to fear them. That your federal government that historically has protected you can come in and take over.
We're going to go right here in the light.
Have you talked to President Trump?
No, but I'm gonna put out a call to him today. I have been talking to. I want to tell him to stop the raids. I want to tell him that this is a city of immigrants. I want to tell him that if you want to devastate the economy of the city of Los Angeles, then attack the immigrant population. I want to tell him, don't you want the World Cup to be a success for you? Well, if that's what you want, give us help. Give us the $130 million that are being used for no reason, wasting taxpayers' money. Give us that money so that we can get prepared for the World Cup next year.
It sounds like have you been trying to reach them in the past week? It sounds like you were talking to the federal government on Friday and that kind of stopped, and the focus is elsewhere, but are they ignoring your call?
No. What I said is that I have not, period, reached out directly to President Trump. My conversations with people either in the administration or close to the administration have been continuing. I've not spoken to Mr. Holman again, but I think those conversations are still going on.
Mayor Bess, I know that you talked about getting business leaders to come together to clean up and help the downtown area, but some have talked to us about their concerns about just protecting their businesses.
Absolutely, yeah.
And some have even said, could we get even the National Guard to protect us? Your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, again, the National Guard's mission is to protect the federal building. That's why I said that we're in discussion as to whether or not there should be a curfew. All of those things will help their business.
Right here in the booth.
Thank you very much. Mayor Bass, obviously you brought up Borders Czar Tom Homan. He's always admonished sanctuary cities. I'm wondering if you feel as if Los Angeles is being targeted because it is a sanctuary city. And in that same vein, if you have a message for Boston, Denver, Chicago, who could experience the exact same thing you're going through right now here.
Well, first of all, the state of California is a sanctuary state. So this could have happened basically to any of the cities. Now, cities, some have adopted the policy, but it is state policy. And so, yes, my concern with those cities that you named is look out. This could happen to you. And if I'm not mistaken, at least a couple of those cities, I think it's Denver and Boston, have already been hauled in to congressional hearings.
Final question today.
I know you said that your office is not being given a heads up about these raids. We were hearing reports yesterday that ICE went to Exposition Park yesterday and took some street vendors into custody. This is a public property. The city has a swimming pool there. Can either you or your staff tell us what you know about this? Is it in fact true? And if it is true, what cautions is the city taking to safeguard the public at Exposition Park or any other public facility?
Well, Dave, yes, we did know about it, like anything else, when it was occurring. We knew about it. Well, just what you said. I mean, the same information I have as well, that street vendors were arrested, that they went in and arrested or detained street vendors. But in terms of what the city can do to protect public properties, you know that we have no idea where they're going. We would not have the capacity to have LAPD at every public facility. And so I was in a room yesterday morning, meeting with the immigrant rights organizations, and all of a sudden everybody's cell phones started blowing up. That's when we all heard about a raid that was taking place in Whittier. So part of the uncertainty and the instability that this creates is that we don't know. It's kind of like whack-a-mole. So if the city hears of something, they will go to it, but there is no capacity that we could monitor all of the public facilities.
But just for our understanding, for example, if ICE shows up at the city side, the aquatic center, whatever, does the city ask them to produce a warrant? Do they ask if they have a warrant to go onto the property?
Well, we can ask that, but at the end of the day, it would be very difficult for city staff to tell armed ICE agents that they can't come in somewhere. Nick? Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm going to call on you.
Right now, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, the federal military is now confined. What would be the implications if they step beyond the federal building protection? And what would you tell those troops to think about before they took an order, or if they were ordered to do something like that?
Well, I don't think I'm going to tell them. What I would tell them is go back and guard the building. That's what I would tell them. But obviously, I have no authority over federal troops.
But what would be the implications for the city if?
Well, the implication, it depends on what they would do. Again, there's nothing happening. So if they wanted to just march up and down the street, then that's one thing. But there's nothing going on right now. And when there is something going on, our law enforcement has the capacity to address it. Yes, wrap us up.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the Australian journalist who was shot earlier this week to the rubber bullet. The Australian Prime Minister has spoken with the Trump administration about the incident, but I wanted to know, how do you feel about foreign media workers being hit like this, like this on the streets of Lisbon?
Well, I mean, I think it's terrible. I think it sends a terrible message. As you said, the Prime Minister of the country had to respond. The President of Mexico has responded. Again, I know, but maybe I don't, that these countries look at this, and I don't think they thought there was some grand thing happening here that required ICE agents to come and disrupt workplaces or chase people through Home Depot parking lots. Thank you very much, everyone.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. A press conference just wrapped up with LA's Mayor Karen Bass. Comes as more demonstrations are expected over immigration raids today in Los Angeles. I want to reiterate, about 700 Marines were mobilized to help support National Guard members assigned to federal buildings in LA. We're going to keep an eye on that. We actually brought you a live look and live coverage of the protests there in LA during our stream yesterday evening. So I'm sure we'll have more coverage of that tonight if protests do occur there in LA. All right, let's shift gears now. Let's take you back out to, we showed you this earlier, the Karen Reed trial that is in week 8. Can't believe it's in week 8. We've covered this from the very beginning. Witness testimony continuing today after a testy day yesterday. Tensions ran high yesterday. Do we know who's on the stand right now? I didn't catch a name.
Dr. LaPosada, I believe.
Okay. Elizabeth LaPosada is on the stand. Just to give you some background on her, she was the chief medical examiner in Rhode Island for 12 years and has experience with a number of court cases. She's back on the stand today, resuming her testimony. Let's take a listen in.
Isn't there?
Yeah, that was a rectal temperature, so that's a good representation of the body temperature.
Is the variance between a common practice of taking temperature and by somebody's mouth and rectal, is it about a 3 or 4 degrees difference, or do you have a different experience?
It can be different. A rectal temperature gives you a better internal body temperature. The oral temperature, if you're breathing in or if you just had something cold in your mouth, may not register a proper temperature. So the rectal temperature is the preferred temperature for a medical diagnosis.
98.6 is an important temperature, isn't it?
Yeah, it's our usual normal body temperature.
And so, is there a standard? Is 95 degrees considered hypothermic?
If you have, then clinically you would start to worry that the person might be experiencing bad effects of hypothermia.
At 95 degrees?
At 95, you start to worry about it.
And could some of the things that happen is labored breathing?
Is what?
Labored breathing?
What about labored breathing?
Well, if someone is hypothermic, if they're 95 degrees, does it affect their breathing patterns?
Not especially.
Okay. Does it affect the way their respiratory system works?
No.
Does it have any effects on the human body if you're hypothermic at 95 degrees?
No. You're still okay.
If that temperature continues to decline, it starts to become dangerous, doesn't it?
It can.
Mr. O'Keefe was evaluated, and at the hospital, his body temperature from a rectal reading was 80 degrees at about, what, 6:37?
Correct.
Did you know that before he got to the hospital, first responders had him in an ambulance?
Of course.
Did you know they turned the heat up and put blankets on him and tried to provide warmth to him before he got to the hospital?
Yes, that would be standard practice.
And that standard practice would usually add temperature to the person, wouldn't it?
Well, it might.
Okay. So it's possible it could, but it might not.
It usually doesn't add that much.
I see. And so inevitably, at 6:37, Mr. O'Keefe's body was 80 degrees?
Yes, when he got to the hospital, his rectal temperature was 80 degrees.
And so that is a drop from the standard, or what's expected, of 98.6 degrees. That's a drop of at least 18.6 degrees?
Yes.
You mentioned that Mr. O'Keefe, after suffering his head injury, would not have moved other than twitching.
Correct. No purposeful movement.
Were you aware that he had an iPhone with healthcare data on it?
No.
If there's no movement, assume for a second there's no movement of Mr. O'Keefe after 12/32/16, and he's found a little after 6 a.m. in the morning. That's about 5 hours, or 5.5 hours, correct?
About.
And if somebody is in the cold for 5.5 hours, that's consistent with dropping from 98.6 degrees to 80 degrees in body temperature, isn't it?
If the person is dead, yes.
If a person is outside in the cold and still alive, will their body temperature decrease?
If they can, people can die of hypothermia, but that's not the case here.
Well, not the ultimate death, but if somebody's outside and they're alive and they're lying in the snow and it's below freezing, will they lose body temperature?
They will, especially if they're not bundled up well.
And body temperature can drop from 2.5 to 4 degrees an hour?
In a dead body.
Okay. In a living person, it can drop 1.5 degrees.
No. A dead body at room temperature will usually lose body temperature at like 1.5 degrees an hour. If a dead body is in a cold environment covered with snow and avalanche environments, the dead body can cool at 4 degrees per hour.
And so a person who is in cold conditions, starting to be covered by snow, less than freezing, they can lose body temperature when they're living, can't they?
If you're sure, you can. People die of hypothermia, but that's not the case here.
Well, someone could be alive, lose body temperature, and not die. That can happen, can't it?
Yeah.
Right. So if someone is in the cold, let's assume they're not dead for a second.
All
They're
right.
in the snow, below freezing, not moving. Can that person lose body temperature if they're still alive?
Sure. They just lie there. They can become hypothermic and die.
Even before they become hypothermic, can they lose body temperature?
Well, losing body temperature makes you hypothermic. Thermic is temperature and hypo means below. So your temperature goes down and you're hypothermic because it's going down.
And people can survive from being hypothermic if they get the right care.
Sure.
And so in that 5.5 hours, it is consistent with a person being outside in the cold and starting at 98.6 and ending at 80. That's consistent with being in the cold for 5.5 hours, isn't it?
For a dead body, yes. That's how a dead body would cool in a snow-covered cold environment.
And it could also be consistent with somebody who is alive for some time and then dies, correct?
I don't understand your.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Surter. Right now, you're watching live. That is the Karen Reed trial in the Boston, Massachusetts area. It's in week 8. On the top right, we are awaiting the arrival of President Donald Trump. He's set to speak in front of thousands of soldiers there at Fort Bragg. And below, make sure you tune in at 6:30 for live weather impact on WCNC Plus, hosted by Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. He'll be here starting at 6:30. Of course, you can catch him during the afternoon and evening newscast, but why not a little extra Brad at 6:30 from 6:30 to 7? All right, so let's shift gears. Let's go to D.C. State Department briefing is underway. That is spokesperson Tammy Bruce at the podium. Let's take a listen in.
Our laws and secure our border. To that end, the United States is committed to disrupting the illicit manufacture and trafficking of fentanyl, a leading cause of death of people aged 18 to 49 in the United States. Yesterday, the United States announced that it is sanctioning La Chapitos, a powerful faction of the Mexico-based Sinaloa cartel, along with its 2 fugitive leaders. The United States is also designating a regional network of Los Chapitos associates and businesses based in Mazatlan, Mexico. This network engages in drug trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, and money laundering. Under Secretary Marco Rubio, the State Department will continue to protect our nation by keeping illicit drugs off our streets and disrupting the revenue streams funding Mexico-based cartels' violent and criminal activity. In addition, Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau will travel to Mexico, El Salvador, and Guatemala from June 10th to the 13th. As detailed in the trip announcement, quote, in each country, Deputy Secretary Landau will participate in a high-level bilateral engagements to further strengthen diplomatic ties and cooperation. He will engage in discussions to drive the private sector led economic growth, boost U.S. commercial investments in our region, and highlight the importance of ending illegal immigration. In addition, there are additional announcements today, of course. The United States sanctioned 5 individuals and 5 sham charities for financially supporting Hamas under the guise of humanitarian work. Additionally, we are targeting a fraudulent charity linked to the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the PFLP. The United States will use all available tools to prevent abuse of the nonprofit sector for the benefit of terrorist groups like Hamas and the PFLP. We are committed to ensuring humanitarian aid can in fact be delivered by reliable and safe organizations. Finally, cultural diplomacy remains an important endeavor of the Trump administration. The Kennedy Center exemplifies this commitment, and its gala is tomorrow night, led by the musical Les Miserables. The center will have a season that will have Broadway, ballet, opera, and even Dolly Parton, in addition to a lot of other great things for kids as well. In this world of ours, it sounds very nice and very appropriate. And now to your question. Sounds like Matt Lee is amused. I hope you might
I just
be.
had to, well, I mean,
Some coughing. I know you weren't laughing.
I
And you
wasn't
might.
laughing.
It would be good to become perhaps a season ticket holder to the Kennedy Center. I'm just saying. But go ahead.
I would be happy to be a season ticket holder to the Kennedy Center. And I would love to see Les Mis, because I never saw it.
There you go.
But anyway, listen, just on your
Yes, sir.
topper, and then I want to go shoot really quickly to the Middle East, just on
Sure.
the top. The State Department doesn't have any role in what's going on in LA in terms of quelling the violence. Is that correct?
Well, as I would view it, and I think that we all know that many of the aspects regarding illegal immigration,
right.
Certainly on the issue of visas,
Right.
the controlling of the border, the designating of foreign terrorist organizations, is one part of a whole of government effort to keep the country safe, to keep Americans safe. Don't push me off here. I'm answering your question. And so when we see the dynamic of what's happening in Los Angeles, it is, I think, quite appropriate for Americans to see this, and it is. The nature of what we are working to do together through the Trump administration to secure this country and to secure our streets. And that means, yes, removing criminal illegal aliens and getting them back to their home countries, and certainly at least getting them off American streets. so that Americans can feel safer in their own homes and in their own communities. And so in the midst of that, when we talk about it, of course, it's the State Department, it's the DOJ, it's ICE, it's the Department of Homeland Security, it is the White House. It is a multitude of departments working together to envision and implement President Trump's vision.
Okay, let me
Yes,
just
sir.
go to the Middle East. So Ambassador Huckabee gave an interview earlier today, I think it was earlier today, maybe it was yesterday, but in which he called into question, or didn't call into question, he basically said that the administration is not particularly interested in seeking a two-state solution for the Israel-Palestinian conflict. And I want to know, I mean, he's been outspoken on this issue in the past, before he became ambassador. But is he speaking on his own, or is this now administration policy that you're no longer so interested in that kind of a resolution?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to characterize the ambassador's remarks. I'm not going to explain them or really comment on them at all. I think he certainly speaks for himself. At the same time, of course, ambassadors are there and they're working with their host country, but when it comes to American policy and certainly where the president stands, I'd suggest you call the White House. All right. Yes, Andrea Mitchell.
Hi, thank you, Tammy. Let me ask you about part of the potential enforcement of the administration's policies to deter illegal immigration. There is reporting of a potential plan to send undocumented immigrants or others who have been detained to Guantanamo, perhaps as soon as tomorrow, while there is a court case pending to rule out Guantanamo as a place to send people, saying that it is not necessary, it is too expensive, and that the conditions are intolerable. But that this would include Europeans from allied countries countries that would willingly accept deportations of their illegal immigrants here. So what is the State Department's position on whether European illegal immigrants, migrants, who have been detained should be sent to Guantanamo rather than to their host countries, including countries that would very willingly accept them? Do you think that this would damage relationships with our allies?
Well, first of all, I can tell you that this entire dynamic, it's managed by DHS, first of all. It's certainly not a dynamic managed by the State Department. I can also say that, of course, it's not new that we are moving criminal illegal aliens to Guantanamo prior. It's not the final destination. It's prior to their being sent to their home country. But when it comes to each country, I'm not going to speak to that. But I would suggest that
I have a follow-up.
well, I won't speak to any country when it comes to the illegal aliens, the criminal aliens that may or may not be sent to Guantanamo Bay. That clearly sits within a diplomatic framework. You're asking me to speak on what the Secretary or others might be discussing with their foreign counterparts, and I'm certainly not going to do that. I'm not going to speculate, and nor will I guess or speculate on the nature of any kind of backlash or the impact on the State Department. What I can tell you is that the backlash would be as if we weren't doing our job. State Department and the Secretary has been very specific about our role, which is the vetting of people who are coming here in the first place, removing illegal aliens who are here, criminal illegal aliens, whether they've overstayed their visa or here illegally entirely. We're very focused on the nature of what the State Department has as its charge. And this is a framework, again, that's, as I just mentioned to Matt, where you've got a whole of government framework. The DHS is in charge of this particular aspect.
But if the DHS literally would be in charge, but does the State Department have a view about what the diplomatic impact would be on our allies?
Again, Andrea, you know I'm not here to speak about the diplomatic opinion or the speculation of the nature of the feelings of things. I'm here to talk about the specifics. You're right. You know, the United States has increased enforcement of immigration laws and removal of illegal aliens. They are being removed because they didn't have a legal basis to be in the United States. These are why, you know, the visa dynamics, the nature of that we have the right, like every country does, to control who comes in and to have an interest in who stays. And that's what this is
Do you think that
about.
sending people to Guantanamo might have a salutary deterrent impact? Would that help the whole of government approach which you were describing?
What I can say is that this is a very specific mission to make American streets safer. And this is why President Trump was elected, to do exactly this. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Just going back to Matt's question on Huckabee's comments, I know you said that the ambassador speaks for himself, but he was appointed by the president and he does represent the U.S. government in Israel. So is a two-state solution a goal of the U.S. State Department currently?
You know, I'm not going to speak, again, what I said to Matt, and what I'll keep saying is I'm not going to parse the ambassador's remarks. That's not what I'm going to do here, and I'm also not going to speak about the nature of what people say that he was claiming or not claiming. I'm not going to have a speculative conversation about that right now. I would suggest that when it comes to the policy of the United States, that sits with President Donald Trump, and he's just he's like a 15-minute walk away from this building. Call them, and in fact, I think they would have an answer for you, I would think.
Okay,
But
and then
of course, the president sets a policy, but Secretary of State is in charge of foreign policy. So irrelevant of
Yes,
what
I'm not.
ambassador.
Yes, I'm not going to begin a conversation speculating based on a statement Ambassador Huckabee may or may not have made. I would suggest when we think about the policy, yes, Secretary Rubio implements President Trump's vision for foreign policy. In speaking on that issue, with everything going on in this world, we are focused clearly on the nature of the things that are in front of us. And if you just suggest calling the White House, you make a determination of the Trump policy, the Trump administration's approach in this regard. So Secretary Rubio doesn't make foreign policy. It's his vision and implementation of President Trump's point of view and President Trump's vision. And so that's what Secretary Rubio does, and obviously does it very well. Yes, sir.
What's the vision that he's implementing here, Tammy?
I'm not going to begin to speculate or go into this. I'm just not going to go here. Ladies, if you want to speak about the National Security Advisor, also call the White House. Yes, sir.
Just to follow up on that issue.
Sure. And this will go ahead.
Sure, but what we have heard from the president is he wants the United States to take over Gaza. Which is obviously one of the occupied Palestinian territories and would be part of a future two-state solution. So is that, you haven't mentioned that, but should we assume that is part of the policy? And therefore that opens the question of what about the West Bank and East Jerusalem? And is that, Ambassador Huckabee seems to be suggesting there wouldn't be a future Palestinian state in those remaining areas. So we kind of know half of the answer to the question, in that you've said it's President Trump's view and decision. He's stated that, although you haven't restated it here about Gaza. So it's just if we could clarify what.
Well, there's a focus on Gaza, and for a very good reason. And that's what we're focused on: is the ceasefire, is stopping the carnage, dealing with what's going on in Gaza. After, of course, the horrific events of October 7th, the nature of what's happening with Iran and its death squads of Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, it's a full plate. And what one does is you start at the beginning and you move forward. We are still working on dealing with either certainly ceasefire and peace for Gaza, and then, of course, the aftermath of that, and rebuilding and dealing with what that means. At some point in time, that will hopefully be the major conversation here, right? Is in the aftermath and the rebuilding and how that's happening. And I would expect that to be a conversation that we'll all be engaging in.
Is it still the policy that the US should take control of that territory?
You know, I can't, I don't, look, what I've heard President Trump say, and what I know the Secretary has always said, is that Hamas can't exist, that we've got to get a ceasefire, that we've got to have new ideas for making sure this doesn't happen again and again and again. I know that the President has called for new ideas to help make that happen. I know that he has had some new ideas in how to do that. We know the region has chimed in with what it believes it can do when it comes to aid and even rebuilding. But the fact of the matter is right now, Hamas won't even let the hostages go. Hamas still won't put its weapons down. Hamas is still playing games as people still die as we do work to get food and aid into that region. So we're still at that kind of dynamic, and we will get to the other part, I hope, as soon as we can. Nadia.
Thank you, Tammy. Just on the Middle East again, the Israeli Prime Minister said today there is significant progress in releasing the hostages and the ceasefire. Does the State Department share his view? And also I want to ask you about the 20 people who have been killed today around distribution center. Last briefing, I believe you said that the Israelis are investigating that. I'm just wondering how these people who have been killed daily now, not one day passes without people being killed around this food distribution center, how can they get their food safely?
Well, of course, that is exactly what we've all been working on, right, is getting food and aid safely in. We also know that the UN had a horrible dynamic where they had flour that they report was stolen by Hamas, and that the problems, and as I've said regularly, we all know it's a war zone. It's a war zone led by terrorists who don't care about humanity or the future. Regarding what's happening on the ground there, I would refer you to the IDF in Israel, which continues, of course, to investigate, and in the case of what's being led by the IDF in Israel there, I think that's where you'd need to go in that regard. And there was a third part. What was this?
Talking about the significant progress that Netanyahu is talking about today.
Yes. Well, again, I can't speak to what the Prime Minister has said.
Is he sharing anything with you, the State Department?
I can't speak to that at this point when it comes to what Netanyahu has said. Saeed, yes, and this will be the end for this particular stretch of questions. Yes.
Thank you very kindly.
Sure.
Just to follow up on the questions that were raised on the two-state solution and so on.
Sure.
Now, we know that President Trump in his first term came up with the deal of the century, which spoke almost in details about his vision. Let me ask you this. Now, there are 5.5 million Palestinians between Gaza and the West Bank. And I want to ask you, if there is no position of the State Department at this time, because the State Department is always...
What I said was I was not going to speak about the issue. I did not say there was no position, sir.
Okay. All right.
Be very careful, because I'm not going to have you put on the record something that is entirely not true.
Okay.
And I want you to proceed with that in mind.
Okay, I take it back. I wanted to ask you, what do you consider the Palestinians in the West Bank? I mean,
I will not provide to you, Mike, what I consider.
Are they under occupation?
We are not going to. I will not. Look, it was nice to be able to call on you, Saeed. I'd like to be able to have a question that I can answer, but you're asking me to speculate. Okay. Right. I would say, I will just reiterate as we move on to another issue, is that President Trump is a man who understands and is working, really is committed these 5-6 months to being a peacemaker and to changing things that people have not been able to change for half a century. And he is determined to do it. He cares about everybody. He cares about the people of Gaza. He cares about the Israelis. He cares about Jews. He cares about Christians. This is a man who genuinely is determined to make a difference as an individual. This is a very fluid situation. He wants solutions. He wants to make sure that people can live safely in the world. And we've seen him time and time again make different decisions, have consultations, talk to people nobody thinks he should talk to. He can change his mind. He's clearly transparent, speaking about what he's going through and thinking each day. So when we think about what the future will look like, it's allow us to do the work that we're doing right now, focusing on the ceasefire, getting aid into that region, and let the president, who's determined to deal with all of the issues in that region, come to the fore of what happens next, and we will learn that only from Donald Trump. All right, so is this other than the Middle East? Where else are we going? This is going, ladies and gentlemen, no, I've said no, Saeed was it? Now, where are you coming from? Iran? All right, we'll do Iran, sure.
That's also the main.
Well, we're not, Gaza and otherwise. Let's move forward, please.
There was just confusion because the two-state solution has undergirded U.S. policy for the past several decades. But I understand that is a question to address to the White House.
Yes, it's for the White House. It's for the future. I will not be commenting from this podium today. And this is, again, we've got so much more on let's just move on, please. Iran?
The question on Iran is, there's been conflicting messages about whether and where and when a sixth round of talks with Iran may take place. Is there clarity on that from the U.S. perspective?
I don't know if you would consider it clarity, but I can say a few things. The president, I think, he noted that something would be happening soon, this week. I think that what I can just reiterate here is that we would hope and expect that there would be new additional talks, and that in fact they would be soon. But beyond that, I have nothing to preview. But in similar situations, when we believed that it would be soon, it in fact ended up being soon.
Right. The Iranians have concretely said Sunday in Oman. So if that is not the U.S. understanding, then
I can't comment on that. Again, the president mentioned a different day. I think that there are individuals involved, obviously, who are working on this, and there will be a final determination, and we will hear about it when that determination is made.
Okay. In that context, just very quickly.
One more follow-up, and then we'll go on.
Thank you. Well, just because the president also had mentioned that this Thursday, this week, would be the sort of 2-month deadline for reaching a deal with Iran or not. When is it determined that those talks are a failure and you don't progress to future?
Well, the president makes that determination, and the people involved. As I've mentioned before, if you think that think about the deadlines, or even as the secretary has said on another situation, that it would be a matter of weeks. The funny thing about negotiations and discussions is that things happen, and that there are conversations, and progress is sometimes made. Not tremendous progress, but enough to keep going. So it is not. It is a dynamic, as it would be with any diplomatic consideration, that negotiations are meant to move things forward. And the good news is that, in fact, it would appear that things are moving forward, and that's what we all want. All right. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tammy. Moving to Ukraine, if I may.
All right. Now, let's one more. Now we're thinking of Lebanon and the other elements of the Middle East. Did you have something, sir? Yes, you.
Well, it was an Iran follow, actually.
All right, Iran follow-up. All right.
So President Trump also said something about Iran that was quite interesting yesterday during the roundtable. He said that Iran has been helping with the ceasefire negotiations in Gaza. Are you able to shed any light on that?
No, I can't. Refer you to the White House in that regard. All right. Lebanon, yes, sir, right there.
Thanks so much.
Yes.
Ukraine has been on the...
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right now, you're watching a live look at the State Department briefing that is underway in Washington, D.C. I wanted to come in, and it's about 12:45 or 2:45 rather. I want to come in with some breaking news. We just got some information near Morganton. 3 kids were struck by a vehicle while working a lemonade stand. Here's what we got from troopers. According to troopers, they're investigating a collision involving 3 children hit by a car while selling lemonade. 2 of the children were airlifted to an area hospital in critical condition, and 1 child was taken to the hospital by EMS and is in critical condition. Again, that breaking news that we have near Morganton, troopers are investigating a collision involving 3 children hit by a car while selling lemonade. 2 of the children were airlifted to an area hospital in critical condition. 1 child was transported by EMS to an area hospital in critical condition. Again, that is the information we have, very limited, but we do know this is near Morganton. As soon as we get more information, we'll be sure to update you here on WCNC Plus. All right, let's take you back now to the State Department briefing that's underway. Spokesperson Tammy Bruce is answering questions from reporters. Let's take a listen in.
To do as much as we can. That is not disputed. And I understand the Ukrainians, who are great friends of this country and have done, there's no disputing the bravery and the commitment of the Ukrainian people. If that was ever in doubt or questionable, this war and how they've defended their nation has dispelled any of that. I had the pleasure of being in a bilat with a Ukrainian delegation recently here. And they are astounding people, and they're remarkable, and they are committed to getting their country safe and this war to end. And so are we. The United States has proven that. The details of which are many, and I can't speak to that, and I certainly would dispute that we are not letting Ukraine do something. The opposite has always been the case. Our goal is to make sure that this war comes to an end, and we continue to focus on that.
And Tammy, on that line, I would appreciate if you help us clarify, reports that the United States has redirected some of the promised defensive weapons from Ukraine. Well, supposed to go to Ukraine, but they redirected to the Middle East. Is that accurate?
I can't speak to that. That is not something that, whether it is or is not happening, it's a decision that is clearly one based in national security if it's happening, and certainly a diplomatic framework that, if a decision has been made, is not something I'm going to remark on here at the podium.
Maybe I can ask one more bigger picture question, Tammy.
No, that's going to be it. We're moving along here. I want to get as many people as I can in today. Yes, sir.
Last week, Pakistan's all-parliamentary delegation led by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari was here. Did he had any meeting the State Department, and also has U.S. received any commitment or assurance from Pakistan that they will they will take action against terrorists working from this?
Well, I can tell you that State Department officials, including Undersecretary for Political Affairs Alison Hooker, met with the Pakistani parliamentary delegation during a visit they had to Washington last week. She reiterated U.S. support for the ongoing ceasefire, as you might imagine, thank God, between India and Pakistan. They also discussed important issues to the bilateral relationship, including counterterrorism cooperation. So that meeting occurred. We also know that Deputy Secretary Landau met with the Indian parliamentary delegation last week, and he also reaffirmed the United States' strong support of India in the fight against terrorism and strategic partnership between those two countries.
Did you receive any assurance from Pakistan that they will take action against terrorists?
I am not going to discuss the details of those conversations.
Also,
all right. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any updates on the temporary pause on scheduling new interviews for student visa applications? Is that still in effect?
I can tell you, of course, and that's a good question because there's so many other conversations about visa restrictions. I do believe that we are in the process, and I don't know if, Tommy, if we might have to take this back, I know last week that we were in the process of indicating that it would be very soon and that people should start looking for those spaces to open up regarding appointments. Nothing has changed in our encouragement still of people to apply for those student visas. This was a matter of making sure that the process that we were expecting of consulates and embassies was proper when it came to what we expected them to be able to vet for. And that process, we were told, would be rapid. And I think at this point, what I can reassert here is that people should watch for those spaces to be open, should continue to apply. This is not going to be a lengthy or an ongoing dynamic. It was meant for a specific, almost an administrative adjustment. And I would hope perhaps we can go back and get more on this. But I think that that's where it stands. And perhaps on Thursday I can get even something more specific for you on the record. And another reminder to the people watching at home. When I say we're going to take something back, it means that we're going to get an answer to that question for the reporter and get it right back to them as well. And so that'll also help us for the next briefing also. Afghanistan, yes ma'am. Afghanistan. Afghanistan.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Let's keep this in order, please. Let's go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As you know, Afghanistan situation is still critical, but different people, different diplomats like Zal Khalilzad, former ambassador in Iraq and Afghanistan, he has a positive idea. But unfortunately, yesterday there was a war started, and Taliban claimed that this is from the ISIS. Number one, do you think it's still ISIS is still active in Afghanistan? And my second question is still some Afghan who was SIV and P1 or P2 left behind in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran. Do you have any update for them to come to the United States, please?
Well, first, I can't speak right now on the internal dynamic of what's happening in any problem between people or claims about ISIS being active and violence that was ensuing. But let's take that back and see what that is. I do know that for the visa restrictions and Afghanistan, that there is for the SIV visas. The proclamation that was used announcing this states that Afghan special immigrant visas are accepted. I'll say exempted from the suspension of entry to the United States. Consular processing of Afghan SIVs, including Afghan SIV interviews, continues at U.S. embassies and consulates around the world. All right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Me?
Yes, you. Yes, sir, you. Yes, thank you. All right, if we're going to have disruptions, we're going to, let's stop this if we could,
Yeah.
Heather. Let's move, please. Let's get, we will remove you if you are not silent right now. So we are going to be respectful to your fellow journalists, and thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now we will go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. As you know, the Iraqi federal government has cut the budget and salary of the Kurdistan region. Have you addressed this issue with Baghdad? What is your position on the matter? And I have
Yes, we're aware of this. We are aware of this. And we urge Baghdad and Erbil to resolve their issues through constructive dialogue consistent with their constitutional responsibilities. Resolving the salaries issue quickly sends a signal that Iraq is creating an environment in which U.S. companies would want to invest. Successful resolution would also send a positive signal on broader cooperation for the benefit of all Iraqis, such as reopening the Iraq-Turkey pipeline and additional energy exploration, including with U.S. companies. When speaking with senior Iraqi officials, such as Prime Minister Soudani, Secretary Rubio has emphasized the importance of stability and prosperity in Iraq and the region. He has done the same in recent meetings and conversations with KRG President Barzani and KRG Prime Minister Mansour Barzani. U.S. support for a strong and resilient Iraqi Kurdistan region remains a crucial element of our relationship with Iraq. All right.
Another question.
Yes, all right. Next, please. Let's get everyone in if we can here.
I'm only going to ask one to get everybody in. Sanctions question for you. The ICC sanctions that were announced last Thursday. 2 members of the pre-trial chamber that signed off on the arrest warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu, Defense Minister Gallant, were sanctioned. But the presiding judge, the 3rd judge in the pre-trial chamber of France, was not sanctioned. What was the reasoning behind sanctioning only 2 of the 3 members and not the presiding judge of that chamber?
Yeah, again, that obviously was a internal diplomatic decision made very specifically about specific individuals, which I won't discuss.
So it was a diplomatic decision?
Well, it's what the decisions that go into the nature of when to do a sanction. Obviously, there's a combination of conversations involving national security, what's in the best interest of the United States, what's in the best interest of our diplomacy, certainly with our ally Israel, and our own national security and the messages that we send when it comes to expecting America to be treated with respect and to be treated with some modicon of decency when it comes to the international scene. I think that makes that clear, but in the sense of the details of that, of course, I can't comment on that here. All right, yes, sir, at the end here.
I have a question about foreign aid. Would you be able to share any update on the status of PEPFAR? I understand Secretary Rubio said last month in a hearing before the Senate that 85% of the program is operational. But now some activists and congressional Democrats are disputing that.
I do have something for you here, just for some clarity. Secretary Rubio referenced an estimated 85% of beneficiaries who could be receiving life-saving treatment and prevention of mother-to-child transmission services based on the full operational capacity of all the operational active awards. It's 85%. That is a correct number. That is as of March 24th, 2025. All right? Good. Oh, wait. Well, hold on.
This cable that went out today from Secretary Rubio instructing all chiefs of mission to abolish all USAID positions, local, direct, either direct U.S. hires or local employees and
Sure,
contractors?
that was not a surprise. It shouldn't surprise anyone. A cable is something sent out from the State Department, in this case, of course, to missions worldwide, instructing them to do something, essentially. There's many more uses and reasons for cables. And sometimes, surprisingly, said no one ever, they get leaked. In this case, it was an order regarding positions, regarding U.S. aid, that they were to be ended. And that was something that was previewed in February when we relayed the roadmap, if you will, of the reorganization, the renovation, if you will, of U.S. aid, making sure that our aid efforts around the world met with what was important to the United States, to the America First agenda. So this was a cable telling our posts exactly what they were expecting to be told, which is that those positions were gone and were being eliminated. So it wasn't a surprise, it's nothing new, and it is exactly what we previewed in February and March of this year. All right, but we've talked to you. Yes, all right, now in the back, young man, right there, yes, young man without the tie, that would be you.
I just, while we have questions on Israel, earlier today, 5 countries.
Can you tell me, by the way, what is your outlet, just a curiosity, and your name?
Ryan Morgan with the Epoch Times.
All right, hi Ryan, welcome aboard.
Thank you for having me. So I was just wondering if you have a quick comment about the 5 countries that sanctioned Israeli ministers Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich today.
Yes, I do. I have something for you on that. And let me get that for you. There's just so much going on today. First of all, we find that extremely unhelpful. It will do nothing to get us closer to a ceasefire in Gaza. This, again, is about Allied sanctions against Israeli ministers. They should focus on, this being UK, Canada, Norway, and New Zealand, should focus on the real culprit, which is Hamas. Hamas put the people of Gaza in this situation by launching the horrific attacks of October 7th, which killed 6 British citizens and 46 Americans, and continue to hold hostages, of course, including the bodies of 4 Americans. We remain concerned about any step that would further isolate Israel from the international community. If our allies want to help, they should focus on supporting Special Envoy Witkoff's negotiations and backing the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation when it comes to food and aid. All right. Yes, sir, in the back? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Sammy. My question is about Ukraine negotiations. Russians and Ukrainians came together in Istanbul last week and they announced a memorandum, and result of that, there was exchange of prisoners. What is your elaboration on that phase of the deal, and how do you follow these negotiations?
Well, the President and the Secretary have been saying for a while that the only real solution can come with the parties talking directly. And that is what we've been seeing here, at least, in this regard. We, of course, remain in close contact with both parties at the highest levels. And we welcomed the success, the movement of, again, more prisoner exchanges. In this case, of course, the seriously wounded and young prisoners under the age of 25. As well as repatriating fallen soldiers, which in that instance was about 6,000 each, horribly. We are not involved, right? We're not involved in that as the State Department. If that was your question, in the United States, this was negotiations, conversations between the 2 parties involved, and that's all I can tell you. Is that we welcome that progress in the meantime.
Are you in contact with the Turkish authorities in order to have them involved in some way to reach a deal between the 2 parties?
Well, I obviously won't speak on, we talk with all of our allies on a number of different reasons all the time, but I won't discuss what the details are of those conversations. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tammy. Question on Iraq. When do you expect Iran to get back to you about your proposal? And President spoke to Focus, and he said Iran is acting much differently in negotiation than it did just days ago. What's changed from Iran from recent days?
Well, I don't speak for Iran. And I think that what we will find is, as we've discussed, the expectation of further talks and those leading those talks and handling the situation. I would hope, as we all do, that we can finally have some answers and some agreement when it comes to the situation.
On Iraq, you said that you are encouraging both Erbil and Baghdad, the Kurdistan region of Iraq and Baghdad, to solve the issue over the budget. Are you engaging with them? There are reports that recently the U.S. charged the effort.
Good afternoon, folks. Vanessa Rufus taking over in the Live Impact News studio. We thank you for being with us this afternoon. We're going to pivot briefly away from the State Department meeting to get to some breaking news out of our area. So we have some information that we are getting from North Carolina's Highway Patrol. This is regarding a collision involving 3 children who were hit by a car. And this was while they were selling lemonade, according to troopers. So really scary situation. Still trying to get some more information on the scene, but we are told by one of the troopers who's giving out the information, 2 of the kids were airlifted to an area hospital. They're in critical condition. There was also another child who had to go by ground, so they went by EMS to a hospital also in critical condition. So the conditions obviously concerning to hear for these kids. We are trying to get some more information too about the specific location, but troopers are telling us Conley Road. So if we get a cross street for that, we will certainly give you an update on that. But to recap once again, some breaking news just into our Live Impact News studio. Troopers confirming a collision where 3 kids were critically injured after they were hit by a car while selling lemonade. 2 of the kids had to be airlifted, and 1 child went by ground to the hospital. Still working on getting that cross street, and also more information from troopers. So with that, we'll go ahead and pivot back to our State Department meeting and keep it here on Live Impact News. As always, we'll break in with any new information either on this scene or any news stories that pop up. Let's listen in.
Generational war. So it shouldn't surprise anyone that he'd want to manage something like that. He seems very much to be, and not just seems, but he has been the only one to bring certain people to the table to have conversations that nobody thought was possible. So while I can't speak to his plans, the world knows his nature, and I can't speak to any details of what he might have in that regard. You could call the White House. I have a feeling they would have plenty to say, but it is an exciting time that if we can get to a point in that particular conflict, thank God, but also thank Secretary Rubio and President Trump and the Vice President. It's a very interesting time, and so it's every day we bring something new, and I hope perhaps something like that can also get resolved before the president.
Yeah, keeping Americans safe is a top priority of this administration. An American citizen group of Panu has wrote a letter to Secretary Blinken demanding to put sanctions on Indian agents involved in his assassination attempt. Did you get that letter? What is your opinion?
Well, if that's something I can't speak on, but let's take that back and we'll go on from there. All right, now I've already spoken to some of you with your hands up. Yes, sir. In the blue top, no, behind you, no, in the glasses, sir. Thank you. Yes.
As you know very well, new South Korean President Lee Jae-myung is pursuing pragmatic foreign policy, which regards the alliance with the United States as the very foundation of his foreign policy. But pragmatic policy also signals an openness to stably manage relations with China. So do you have any comment on the new South Korean government's foreign policy stance?
Well, I don't. What I can tell you is that there was a call between the president and President Jae-myung Lee. We can confirm that that phone call, in fact, took place, and we refer you to the White House for those details. We congratulate the president on his election as the president of the Republic of Korea, and we're confident under his leadership that our alliance will continue to thrive. Again, for more, perhaps further comment, if you'd like to know President Trump's view of that, I'd suggest you call the White House. All right, now in the back is going to be our last question here to you, sir.
Thank you.
And a nice white crisp shirt and a tie and glasses and There's our sartorial remarks here today,
Thank
apparently.
you, Tammy, for giving me the opportunity to ask
Yes, sir. And your outlet again, sir?
I work for France 24 and Asharq al-Awsat newspaper.
Very good. Welcome aboard.
My question is about Lebanon. There were reports yesterday that the U.S. is engaging Israel in some discussions about the fate of UNIFIL. Would you please shed some lights on what do you think regarding the situation of UNIFIL in southern Lebanon, and what do you expect from UNIFIL and from the Lebanese government? And also, I have a question whether you would confirm that Ambassador Tom Barak will visit Lebanon next week. Thank you.
All right. Well, for the first part of that, we'll have to take all of that back. I know that quite some time ago, we discussed this here at the podium, but as we also know, time changes things, and I want to make sure, I don't want to repeat to you the nature of what we were saying months ago. So let's go back and we'll get those answers there. Regarding Ambassador Barak, he is, of course, our ambassador to Turkey, and he's leading the way in our effort regarding Syria. And giving them a chance to make a difference and to move into the future. I think we can get a good answer from the ambassador about his plans regarding any travel. I'll do my best for you in that regard. But he's a busy guy. We had him here last week. He spoke to many here in general, off the record for like a meet and greet. But he's a man who clearly is making a huge difference. We expect more from him, and we'll get back to you with his travel plans and
a quick follow-up
right, sure.
on the fate of Miss Morgan Ortegas, because there are a lot of rumors in Lebanon and
I can
in
see
the
myself
region.
answering this question.
Yeah, but,
Said no one ever.
but I know you answered without answering the question before.
Well,
but, would you put an
I will
end to
not
those
answer
rumors?
without not answering. No, first of all, I will not speak about personnel dynamics. I'm certainly not going to address rumors surrounding those, any personnel dynamics here regarding anyone. And I'm going to leave it at that. All right, thank you, everyone. Great job. I'll see you on Thursday. Thank you very much.
Okay, you can see State Department is wrapping up with spokesperson Tammy Bruce. With that, we want to talk about weather impacts of the day. Of course, we were kind of on weather alert late last night, and it sounds like we're keeping an eye on some potentials for today and later. So we wanted to check in with meteorologist Majestic Storm to see what we can expect over the next several hours and beyond. So let's listen into her latest report here.
Well, good Tuesday afternoon to you. I'm meteorologist Majestic Storm. We have another cloudy day today. The first chunk of the day is going to be dry, and we'll see temperatures rise to just about where we should be for this time of the year. But as we head towards the afternoon and the evening time, we have another round of passing showers and a few storms as well. This afternoon in Charlotte, you can plan for 85 degrees, 82 in Hickory, 85 also out towards Gastonia. Comfortable conditions again for the first half of the day. You'll notice increasing cloud coverage though into the afternoon, and once we hit about dinner time and afterwards, we'll see some passing showers and a few storms. You'll notice that as we head towards the later half of the day. Now, some of those storms, we do need to let you know, they could become strong at times. Storm Prediction Center does have a large majority of our viewing area highlighted in this yellow, meaning it will be a low-end risk for severe storms. So let's time this all out for you. If any of those storms do become strong or possibly severe, we don't have a tornado risk today and not a hail threat either. Really, if any of those storms do pick up that intensity, they'll bring some strong gusty winds again. Some of those winds gusting over 60 miles an hour. Now, as we're looking at that 4 o'clock time frame, we'll start to see a few pop-up thunderstorms and some rain showers move in. Notice at that point, 4 o'clock, it'll be mainly northwest of Charlotte, where we do have those pockets shaded in orange and red. That's where we could see brief heavy downpours. Again, some gusty winds, lightning, and thunder. So do keep this in mind for your commute home from work tonight, or if your kids do have any summer events that are going on, any camps that are going on right now, this may be a little bit of a watch spot that we're going to be continuing to follow closely. There's about 6 o'clock around dinner time or so. That's when some of those storms may pop up throughout the Charlotte area, northeast of Charlotte, out towards Concord and Salisbury, even through Greensboro. As we head through that 9 o'clock time frame, by this point, the storm should be all done as we're looking out towards the mountains, but not quite totally out of our area, continuing to impact areas like Chester and Rock Hill, even passing through Lancaster. Now, the storms today, if they do become severe, they'll be very isolated in nature. Not everyone will see them, but again, we could get some more rain passing through with the system as we're seeing that pop up on our futurecast. Let's take a look at those mountains today, because it's going to be comfortable. Temperatures around 75 this afternoon in Boone, as well as Blowing Rock. 71 out towards Banner Elk, so comfortable with a nice mix of sun and clouds out there. And then as we're heading towards Lenore, let's plan for 83 for your forecasted high, 82 for everyone in Hickory. Up towards Statesville, 84 will be your high, and 85 here in Charlotte. 83 from Monroe and Lancaster, and about 85 is where you'll top off this afternoon in Rock Hill. So it is going to be warm. It's also going to be a bit muggy. Over the next 3 days, this is what you can expect. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Getting a bit warmer, but each day we will have the possibility of seeing some passing showers. We're going to see that uphill rise in those temperatures as we're finishing out the work week, but on Friday those temperatures will slip down just a bit. Now look at the precipitation. This is over the next 10 days. Not dry, that's for sure. We'll have several opportunities for rain showers to make their way across our area. Now here's our 7-day forecast. You can see those rain showers really shouldn't move in until this afternoon and this evening. About a 60% chance for us today. Overnight lows tonight will dip down into the upper 60s, and then we'll warm things up on Wednesday. If you have any plans tomorrow, I'm not seeing any storm chances. It is going to be rather comfortable, a bit more summer-like as those temperatures get a bit warmer. Almost 90 degrees for our Thursday, and this upcoming weekend, if you're already making those plans, just know we do have rain and storm chances ahead. Have a great day.
All right, folks, so there you have it, your forecast going through the rest of the week, essentially, and just a bit beyond. We wanted to turn now to some updates that we're getting from the public health front. And so we have with us Mecklenburg County Public Health Director Dr. Raynard Washington joining us here on Live Impact News. Dr. Washington, thanks so much for your time. We have a couple topics we'd like to hit with you today.
Great to be here.
All right, so we'll start off, Dr. Washington, with some of the changes in the guidance for COVID vaccines, because we've seen kind of over the last few weeks things evolving as far as what federal officials are recommending. So I feel like it's a little bit confusing. What can you do as far as boiling down the changes for folks at home watching?
Sure. Essentially, we heard from the Health and Human Services Secretary last week, I believe it was, that the FDA would no longer be recommending the COVID-19 annual booster for some subgroups in our community, specifically younger adults under the age of 65 who do not have any underlying health conditions, as well as children. There is a very long list of underlying health conditions, though, that would exclude someone from this new recommendation, and that includes a wide range of physical health conditions, many chronic conditions, hypertension, diabetes, and more complicated conditions as well, in which case those individuals would still be recommended to receive the annual booster at this time. And so I do encourage folks to talk with their primary care providers, reach out to us here at the health department if they have questions, if they'd like to know if there's anything that's changed for them. Of course, we are in the middle of the summer months now, and so we don't expect a new booster until later on this year in the fall. So around that time, ahead of the new boosters being available, we will also be sending out pretty clear communication about who's recommended and who's not.
I guess one of my curiosities here is if I'm not really recommended to be getting the booster, but I still feel like I want one, is that something that I could still potentially discuss with my doctor and see if I could get it anyways? Or is it simply, you're not going to get it now this year if you're not on the list?
Yeah, no, certainly. You should certainly have that conversation. There's still a lot of uncertainty. I will say typically this is not how recommendations for vaccines are made in the country. Typically, the Advisory Committee on Immunizations that's at the CDC makes recommendations. The FDA typically does approvals of medications. So this is a bit of a deterrent from our usual approach. But again, ACIP is meeting later this month, the Advisory Committee on Immunization. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. What I think some of us in public health are a little concerned about is that sometimes insurance companies do make decisions about covering certain treatments because of public recommendations. So we are not sure yet if it's going to impact this recommendation that came out last week will impact coverage for individuals who don't meet that list. So I think there are still some uncertainties that will hopefully get ironed out ahead of the next respiratory viral season.
I mean, at this point, how do you feel as far as the immunity in the community? Because obviously we're now several years removed from the pandemic. We have previously, I remember speaking with you before when we'd have those briefings, the regular briefings during COVID about wanting to build up the herd immunity, the fact that you get the immunity both from the vaccine and also from having the virus previously. So I guess, do you feel like folks are mostly covered? Or, I mean, I know there's been talks recently of a new strain now that's circulating. Are there any concerns that folks might start to see that immunity waning at any point?
Yeah, I think it's, I'll say it this way. Certainly there is a lot of folks have been exposed to the COVID-19 virus and several of its variations or mutations. But it's a virus. And so viruses, it's also a very volatile virus that's able to mutate pretty easily. And so just like with other types of respiratory viruses like influenza that mutate really easily, our concern is that, the virus gets smarter in its ability to be able to either cause more severe illness or to spread more quickly is always possible. And so I think it's important that even though we're not in the middle of a global pandemic without a vaccine available to us, that we do continue to monitor what's happening with COVID in the community and obviously work to ensure that we have tools available to us like vaccines that have been updated that are more effective against the strains that are circulating, because there are still people getting sick with COVID. There's still people who are dying because of the complications of it, and still people who are hospitalized as a result of it. And so ultimately, it's important that we continue to stay up to date on surveillance to ensure that we know what strains are circulating and what's the impact of those strains if it's any different than prior strains.
Now, I did want to touch briefly on measles, if I could, because I know recently here on WCNC Plus, we talked about the fact that there was an updated travel advisory for folks who might be passing through airports or train stations or really just any venues that are heavily trafficked where a lot of people are gathering. And there might be some concerns that measles could be spreading in these types of settings. Have you been monitoring those, warnings, I guess, from a public health perspective here in Mecklenburg County? We know Charlotte Douglas is a very heavily trafficked airport where a lot of people come and go and pass through. Any specific measures y'all are taking? Do we have any cases that you've heard about that are close to us at this point?
Yeah, so no cases of measles just yet. We did have a case of measles last summer here in Mecklenburg County among one of our residents. But certainly with what's happening in the southern western parts of the country with the high number of measles cases tied to the outbreak that began in western parts of Texas, as well as the cases popping up in various places around the country, it is certainly concerning. And so we are preparing here locally for what will happen when we do have a case of measles. And so just even a few weeks ago, we had a tabletop exercise that we hosted with all of our community partners to ensure that we were prepared for potential measles exposure in our community, as well as if we had to respond to an outbreak that was large scale. Measles is an interesting outbreak to manage because we have a very short window of opportunity that we can intervene to ensure that we get people vaccinated who are not up to date on their vaccines. And so we have a very short 72-hour window that we have to try to respond quickly in order to contain it. And so we have to make sure that our healthcare partners, our laboratories, our medics, as well as even the detention center is up to date on infection control and response procedures. And so that exercise was an all-day thing we did with our healthcare systems and other partners to make sure that we were ready in the event that we had to launch a mass vaccination campaign or investigation for measles.
Now, I mean, I remember in kind of reading up and following along with what has been happening in West Texas and elsewhere, it sounded like, at least at last check when I had been catching up on the issue, that most of the folks who were getting ill they seemed to be unvaccinated. Do you see that as still the trend? And I guess if so, if that is the situation, what are your thoughts on just the state of vaccination right now for this disease, which at one point we had eradicated in the United States?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that we're here. I think the reality is that most people in our community are vaccinated for measles, which is good. It is a highly effective vaccine in terms of its ability to be able to protect folks from developing infections or lessening the severity of infections. That being said, we do know that the number of kids who are not compliant with vaccines is going up, and the number of folks who are requesting exemptions from the measles and other childhood immunizations is also increasing. And so while we do have, I would say, a great extent of herd immunity in the community because of vaccination, as those numbers of folks who are not up to date start to grow, our risk as a community starts to grow as well, that we'll have a large scale outbreak or measles will be introduced into our community, either from folks picking it up during travels or, again, of course, small individuals, small babies who are not able to get vaccinated just yet because of their age, or not fully vaccinated because of their age, have acquired it during travel, et cetera. So I think it's important that we continue to reinforce that we have a tool that's highly effective and useful to help us protect against measles, as well as other childhood vaccine preventable conditions. And so we want to make sure we continue to emphasize that for everybody, that that's an important step. And for us, keeping measles out of our community. And yes, it's true, the majority of folks who were exposed or contracted measles and the situation in Texas were folks who were unvaccinated. I think what's most concerning is that while we still have a relatively small number of people who are not vaccinated or up to date on vaccines or not choosing to be vaccinated, a lot of those families tend to be hyper concentrated geographically. They live in the same neighborhood, go to the same school, particularly when you think about religious beliefs that might be driving a person's decision to not get vaccinated. And so that does concern us more, because when you have a large number of children in a congregate space that are not vaccinated together, they don't have that protection of sort of herd immunity of having enough folks around them vaccinated. And so I think also what's important is that there's some kids who cannot be vaccinated because they have medical contraindications. So we, the rest of us who are able to be vaccinated, do that also for those of our neighbors who are allergic to products. For example, they're allergic to a substance that's in a vaccine and can't get it. And so having that high level of vaccination helps not just those of us ourselves, but also helps our neighbors.
And I mean, on that note of getting vaccinated, is that one of the recommendations for folks if they do plan to travel, or if they feel like they're going to be passing through airports or any of these highly traveled areas, if there are even questions about their vaccination status? Because I know I actually, at one point when the news of West Texas started to kind of bubble up, this was obviously several weeks back, months back at this point, but I had people asking me, I was vaccinated before this certain date, I think, do I need to get vaccinated again? So I think there are a lot of questions about how long the immunity lasts and do I need a booster or any of that stuff. Are you able to kind of clarify any of the protocol for folks who are watching right now?
Sure. I would say for sure, measles, again, is a really effective vaccine and has a long life in terms of its protective properties. And so in general, if you've been vaccinated, you were fully vaccinated as a child, you do not need a booster or any additional boosters. The only folks who might potentially need consideration for boosters are folks who may have a compromised immune system, and they may have their immunity may have waned significantly because of some other complicated chronic illness. In those cases, they should just talk with their provider. Again, that's not always and not often, but in general, most of us, if you've gotten the completed series as a child, you don't need to do anything right now. But if you have a child that is not vaccinated, my advice would be to make sure that kid gets up to date as quickly as possible. That is most important for everybody, whether you're traveling or whatever the case might be. If your child, particularly if your child is in a congregate setting, so if they go to childcare, after school, they go to school, they really should be up to date as on all of their childhood vaccines, including the MMR vaccine. And then for adults in general, as I mentioned, there's not really anything to do with the exception of if you're a parent, watch your child for symptoms, and of course, get them up to date.
If I am, let's just say, vaccinated, so I know that my status is good and everything's good, but I am traveling through, is there anything else I need to be doing as far as this travel advisory to take precaution or keep me and my family safe?
Yeah, again, I do think that as it relates to young children who are not vaccinated, I think I would take caution and talk with their pediatrician about traveling to places where measles might be endemic or more prevalent. I think that would be an important conversation to have with the pediatrician before planning to travel, if the child is not up to date on vaccines. And then again, I do think that a child is most protected when they're fully vaccinated. So if you can delay travel until they reach the age where they can be fully vaccinated, I would certainly advise that as well. But again, it's a conversation that every family can have with their pediatrician.
I'd like to ask you too about the MEC Design Day, because I saw that coming up on the calendar. I believe tomorrow you have a couple of sessions. You have a Latino engagement session, and you also have one that basically just spans from 9 in the morning till 3. So I figure I'd just pick your brain about that right now. What are you hoping from the community? What do you hope to learn, and how would you use that information?
Yeah, so that's a part of our community health assessment process. It's where we go talk about data and the health status of our community, and also give our community partners and residents an opportunity to help us think about what we all can do collectively with the health department. Our health systems are hosting that as well with us to improve health in Mecklenburg County. And so that really is an exciting day for us to give an update on where we are with making Mecklenburg County healthy, and also to ensure that we get the kind of feedback from the people who experience life here every day, and to how do we build a system, how do we build neighborhoods, how do we build communities that make health possible for everyone. And so tomorrow is an opportunity for us to get together with about 300 folks to talk about their experiences in Mecklenburg County, both as residents and professionals, and to how do we collectively work together towards building a healthier community.
Is this your first event of this type, or have you been doing these before?
This is the second MEC Design Day. So we had the first one as a part of, we renew our community health assessment every 3 to 4 years with both of our health systems here. And so this is the second, we're in that process now of doing a new community health assessment. And so this is our second convening of MEC Design Day. The first one was just a few years ago actually, and there were about 250 folks there at that event. And so we're excited to be able to have some more space this year at CPCC.
Yeah, I'm just curious, back then, what was your takeaway? What did the community tell you about the needs that it had on the public health front? And are those needs still out there? Are you still trying to work towards, addressing those?
Yeah, so,
Sorry about that, folks. Looks like we just lost our shot with Dr. Raynard Washington. If we can try to get him back, we certainly will. We're going to try to finagle that briefly. Jeb, any updates?
His computer restarted.
Oh, no. Okay, his computer restarted. As you can see, the joys of Zoom are playing out. But I feel like we got a really great discussion from him covering multiple topics. So we talked about, of course, the COVID changes, the guidance changes that are coming down from the federal level, and also some of the advisories we're seeing on the measles front. So just as soon as we can turn this around and put this on our website, we certainly will, and also on our YouTube channel. But meantime, here on Live Impact News, we have a few things that we're watching right now ahead of us for the rest of, I guess, the remaining half hour of our stream here. One of the items, really exciting, we've got Panthers minicamp, and we've got our sports reporter, Danielle Stein, who's covering that in tandem with the rest of our sports team. So we want to talk about how things are going today. Danielle is standing by for us right now. Danielle, we're going to get to some of the actual nitty gritty in just a moment. But first, because we always talk about it, how's the weather?
I will say right now it feels a little bit cooler than it was. It feels like a little bit of a breeze going on, but the sun was definitely coming down earlier. You could feel the humidity out there, but hey, the guys are all having a good time being back out there and feeling like as close to real football as we've seen so far this offseason.
Well, I'm glad to hear there's a bit of a breeze. That might not always be the case. I'm curious to hear maybe what some of the players think about things. I guess on that, do you have an answer? I saw you shake your head.
Well, I'm just laughing because one of the first things that T-Mac, of course, first round pick that the Panthers picked up, he is very vocal about saying that the weather was something that he's going to have to get adjusted to. And we're all like, T-Mac, you're from California, you went to school in Arizona. This is really bothering you? He said, yes, this humidity. And people are saying you're going to be in for a treat coming up soon, too.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly about him because I think it might have been Carboni who was telling me a couple weeks back his first kind of foray into doing activities outside. He was like, oh, this humidity's not so bad. And we're like, it's not even the season for that yet. But to be continued, I suppose, on that dialogue. So otherwise, how is the energy going there?
Right.
Are the vibes good? Do we feel like things are gelling with the team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for this being the first day of mandatory minicamp, so we've seen a lot of the guys come out during OTAs. It was actually pretty well attended during that last week. Not too many players who missed that time, so pretty much everyone we would expect was back out on the field today. And we saw some really animated energy, especially coming from Bryce. Starting off the day, we saw him really rallying the offense, really coming around, jumping, hyping his guys up. Other people, of course, who also were a little bit of the energy guys, JC Horn coming off of his all-pro season last year, Chiba Hubbard, those three are the ones that are kind of the ones bringing that energy and talking about that. JC actually said, though, we can't be the only three doing that. We need to make sure all of us are bringing the energy on every single play, every single day. But other than that, it was really good to see Bryce connecting with his pretty diverse group of receivers that he has. We saw him and Thielen connecting a number of times, as well as, of course, all of the other receivers that he has to work with. So overall, a good first day and a good showing.
Great to hear that folks are settling in, and of course we know Bryce Young he's getting up in his time here, so he's building up the years, and obviously we hope building up the comfort. I guess we should probably talk about some of the coaching staff too, and continuity, and how that might be playing a role into how things are gelling as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for a lot of these guys, they've seen different coaches coming through. This is now good to, of course, be in the second full year with Dave Canales, Dan Morgan, and the staff that they've built around them. So I was talking to Ike Ekwonu a little bit after practice today, and we were talking a little bit more specifically about the O-line and the continuity there, but he's saying how these are really great to have that chemistry being built from that first year last year to now this year, and not much turnover between the two. So it's really good to see those relationships continuing to be fostered, and that's only going to be more evident when you see the on-the-field play coming into action as well.
And then I guess the next thing to talk about here, we always, I feel like say this every year, folks got to stay healthy. Are we seeing any progress on that front? Are we seeing anything that is concerning?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say concerning just yet. The one notable, I'm just going to pull this up to make sure I am seeing this correctly, but we saw, of course, we heard that Tommy Trumbull did undergo a surgery, and we're not expecting to probably see him until preseason begins. But we did hear today that Panthers outside linebacker Amari Barno did have a procedure to also clean out his knee, which Dave Canales said is a pretty similar procedure to the one that Tremble had. So we can expect both of them to be missing a little bit of time. Today during practice, it was a little bit to note at first. We saw Xavier Leggett took a little misstep, a little hobble. He went off to the side and worked with some trainers for a bit. He did get back in on the action as well and seemed to be full steam ahead for the rest of mini-camp practice today. Another notable is another rookie, Jimmy Horn Jr., someone that a lot of people are pretty excited about, the wide receiver coming out of Colorado. He was not participating in the drills. He did do warm-ups, but he was present on the field. He also missed the end of OTAs. I believe Dave Canales said it was a hamstring issue that he was dealing with, but it doesn't seem to be too much of a concern. He was still out on the field. He wasn't in uniform like the rest of the guys, but he was still able to do some warm-ups and be part of these team activities.
All right, Daniel Stein reporting from Bank of America Stadium for us on this first day of Panthers minicamp. I know y'all have a whole, slate of coverage planned for us as we go on throughout the evening. Correct me if I'm wrong, is it Nick Carboni coming up at 4 o'clock as folks keep it here on WCNC Plus?
Yeah. Yep, Nick Carboni will be coming up in just the top of the hour. We have two awesome one-on-one interviews that we'll be bringing you the rest of the night. I spoke with left tackle Ike Ekwonu. Of course, he's the Charlotte native, and he just got his fifth-year option picked up just a couple months ago, so really good to catch up with him. Nick caught up with Adam Thielen. Of course, he's a veteran. He's bringing that veteran presence to the offense as well, and he talked a lot about how, you know, the young guys around him are kind of keeping him young too, and it's just been fun to be back with this group. So definitely a lot of coverage today, and we can only expect a lot more for the rest of the week as well.
Excellent, excellent. All right, Daniel, thanks so much for taking some time with us here on Live Impact, and we'll see you later this evening for those one-on-ones and the rest of the coverage. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome, thanks.
Thank you, she says. All right. Great to see Danielle as always, and fun to talk about Panthers too. We want to turn our attention now to an ongoing trial that we've been watching out of Dedham, Massachusetts. If you can believe it, we are in week 8 of the Karen Reed retrial, and we've been covering it extensively for you here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. But just a quick recap, Karen Reed in a retrial portion now because the previous trial ended in mistrial back in July. She is accused of killing her police officer boyfriend by backing over him with a car. That's the accusation. And now we've been seeing testimony here on day 2 of week 8, entailing some of the investigative work and how some of the evidence was collected. So let's listen in. It sounds like the judge might be even giving some instructions right now. So let's listen.
I'm going to attempt to put slides 9 to 23. Now, as I said to you at sidebar, once you do this, or if you talk to the Commonwealth, if there's no objection to some of those numbered slides that I said needed to be edited, if the Commonwealth agrees that they come in, you can go ahead and put them in because I would allow them if it's by agreement.
Thank you.
Okay? All right. So do you expect that we will finish with Dr. Rentschler tomorrow?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Brennan?
I don't think I'll be as long as I was with both.
Okay.
Depending on how it goes, if he has an hour and a half, I expect I'll probably be about an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. And then we'll figure out where we are Thursday. It seems that the case may be ready to go to the jury Friday, maybe Monday at the latest. But that's...
By Monday. Based on our
Does that seem like a fair estimate to you, Mr. Brennan?
I think we'll be ready Friday.
Okay. All right, so we'll see. Okay? All right, thank you. We'll see everybody tomorrow morning. Yes.
Should I have Dr. Welcher in for tomorrow or wait till Wednesday? Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Tomorrow's Wednesday already. Can we, Mr. Jackson, can we reevaluate that mid-morning or the luncheon break and see where we are, whether we need Dr. Welcher here in the afternoon?
Of course.
Okay. All right, we'll do that.
I think Mr. Leslie would have one issue you'd like to address the court.
Yes, Your Honor. With regard to various exhibits that Your Honor said would be admitted based upon the issue that we had with regard to the Exhibit 88, Your Honor said you would...
Yes, we'll put those into evidence.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
That was the only item pressing for today.
Yeah, I said yesterday they'd come in, they're coming in. Okay, so those will be in evidence. Mr. Brennan, you were on notice yesterday that I was letting those in. Okay. All right, we're all set. We'll see you tomorrow.
All rise for the court, please.
Okay, it looks like court proceedings have wrapped up for the day. You kind of heard the judge giving a potential breakdown of the timeline going forward, essentially seeming like we are getting towards the end of testimony and calling of witnesses, and sounds like there is the expectation, or at least the hope, that this case would go to the jury by the end of the week. And of course, we will continue to follow it over the next few days. But today, as we talked about, hearing some testimony from more of the experts in the situation, crash expert, reconstruction expert that we heard from today, and we'll be back tomorrow as more of the proceedings pick up. With that, we want to turn to a big announcement. We're going back to sports here from earlier in this week. This is the Dick Vitale Invitational. So we actually had the pleasure of speaking one-on-one with Charlotte Sports Foundation that announced this brand new concept, and the very first year, the inaugural year, it's going to be held right here in the Queen City, which is entirely special. And of course, Dick Vitale, Dickie V, such an icon when it comes to just being synonymous with college basketball. This matchup is going to bring Texas Longhorns, Duke Blue Devils, here to the Queen City to face off on November 4th. And so we want to talk a bit about what Charlotte Sports Foundation did to bring this event here, but also how it fits into the larger goal of what they're trying to do here for Charlotte. So let's listen to this earlier interview. So we just learned today ESPN Events alongside Charlotte Sports Foundation has announced a pretty awesome get for the Queen City as far as sports in our area. It's an inaugural, so brand new event, and this is the Dick Vitale Invitational. How cool is this? So we're going to talk about it a bit more. We have Charlotte Sports Foundation joining us right now. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got Will Pitts with us. So Will, if you could, talk a bit more about this, once again, brand new event, and it's going to kick off here in the Queen City. How special is this?
It's very special. Thank you. Thanks for having us. We're thrilled for this announcement to welcome the Dick Vitale Invitational to Charlotte on Tuesday, November 4th, featuring two of the most storied programs in college basketball history with Duke and Texas, and recognizing and honoring one of the most iconic figures and voices in college basketball in Dick Vitale. We think is a really special moment, and we're excited with our partners, the ESPN Events, to bring this event to fruition, and we're thrilled that it's going to be hosted at Spectrum Center, and so we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is a pretty cool matchup. The fact that it's going to kick off here in Charlotte is really awesome. Having lived in Florida for a long time, very familiar with Dickie V and his ties to the Florida area. So I think it's kind of cool that we've pulled him here to kick off this event here in the Charlotte area. And so this is scheduled for November 4th. Can you talk about just the idea behind this, how this came about, how this came to fruition, and also, you know, the goal of Charlotte Sports Foundation, because we know this is not the only event that y'all have really pushed for to have here in Charlotte and bring to our area, and also for folks to come to our area and enjoy.
Absolutely. So as you referenced, first and foremost, our mission as an organization is simple. It's drive economic impact and enhance the quality of life for those who live in this region through high-profile sports events. And we think the Dick Vitale Invitational is a perfect way to do that. So we're excited. We think it complements the current sports landscape and ecosystem extraordinarily well. As you mentioned, we've got a great history of high-profile college basketball in Charlotte at Spectrum Center, and we think this is another great iteration. So in conversations with the Spectrum Center and ESPN Events and the teams, we were excited to bring this to fruition. As you also mentioned, we're excited coming off the heels of a really special weekend in Charlotte with 2 nights of Banana Ball, the 148,000 fans at Bank of America Stadium. That was really exciting to see that come to fruition. And so for the Charlotte Sports Foundation, it's continuing to drive unique special sporting events with our partners to this community, and we're excited about this one in early November.
I think that having these events, you know, just as someone who observes them, not only for the folks who are coming here to the city and, you know, partaking as fans, you know, going to the events in general, I feel like when you start to see some of the coverage too on TV, for example, you mentioned Banana Ball. I watched some of that from Saturday, in fact, and then they start to show the skyline of Charlotte, and you're like, that's our city. Look, there's Bank of America Stadium, and I feel like it really puts the city on a really big map, and I think that it kind of just really just adds to the allure of folks wanting to come here and really just see what Charlotte is all about. I guess as far as the event itself, I mean, what can you tell us? I mean, great matchup, as you alluded to, Texas and Duke. What can folks expect from the event altogether? And I know this is the first year, so it's hard to say. Are there any thoughts of how this might develop as the years go on?
Yeah, first and foremost, we believe and hope this is going to be a legacy event for Charlotte, and we're excited about starting really the college basketball season with this matchup and with this inaugural event, and partnering with obviously ESPN to bring it to fruition is exciting. So we think it's going to be an incredibly vibrant, exciting, energetic Spectrum Center cheering on the best in college basketball, and we think it'll be a great way to start what we hope is a long-term event for Charlotte. And we think it's an event that has opportunity to grow and evolve, and we're going to continue to work with our partners on what that looks like on an annual basis. But we think this will also really complement our Ally Tip-Off basketball event that's later that week. So from November 4th to the Ally Tip-Off on November 9th, we think we've got a great week of celebrating college basketball in Charlotte, and we're excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly know folks who come into town here. You know, I have relatives who actually come in from Florida, and they want to come and watch basketball here in Charlotte whenever we have these big events. You know, as far as, you know, the events that you're hoping to eventually land, is there anything kind of big in the hopper that you want to tease us with a bit, or maybe just a goal that y'all don't know that will quite work out, but it's just something that is on the table and something that you're really pushing for that you can kind of give us a hint about?
Well, as you mentioned, we're so well positioned in Charlotte because we've got first-class venues. We have unique walkability in Center City, one of the busiest airports in the country that's only 10 minutes down the road, that we think Charlotte offers a really compelling, unique experience for fans, athletes, and others to come experience our city in a sporting event in a unique way. So for that reason, we think Charlotte's got a lot of unique opportunities that it can continue to pursue to complement what already exists in the community. So we've said before, we think an NFL draft would be great in Charlotte, and so we hope that one day it'll call Charlotte home, and we think an Army-Navy game would also be fantastic. So those are a couple events that we'll be continuing conversations with our partners around to explore those, and we think we've got some other opportunities in the future that we'll hopefully be announcing in just a couple months we're excited about, and we'll see where it goes from there, but we're really excited about the opportunity and momentum that Charlotte has in the sports landscape.
You have us salivating here in the Live Impact News studio thinking about some of those prospects that you just mentioned. That's pretty neat. Okay, so I noticed when you go to the website, DickVitaleInvitational.com, where you go to Charlotte Sports Foundation's website to see the landing page for the Dickie V Invitational, there's a place to sign up to kind of get notice of tickets when they come on the market. Do you have an estimate of when folks might start to get some of those emails if they sign up for sales or pre-sales, if there are any like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. We encourage folks to sign up for the pre-sale as early as possible. And over the next couple months, we anticipate to have more definition in terms of timing around when we're going to go on sale and pre-sales, et cetera. So I would expect later this summer, early fall for all that to come out to fruition, but encourage fans to go to the website to sign up now to ensure they get early access to the tickets, because we expect a big crowd for the Dick Vitale Invitational.
And we'll remind folks once again, DickVitaleInvitational.com is where you can find more information. We'll connect you as well on our website, WCNC.com, and with our mobile app. And the date to mark on the calendar, Tuesday, November 4th. Will Pitts with Charlotte Sports Foundation, thank you so much for taking the time. And when you land the NFL draft, please come on Live Impact News first and let us know.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Take care.
All right, so there you have it, folks. Okay, we had a pretty good conversation, too, as we kind of turn more to the serious side of things recently with a local historian who recently released a book that looked essentially at affordable housing and low-income housing policies over the last several decades, but specifically in Charlotte. And I know affordable housing is a really important topic for us here in the Charlotte area, but also nationwide. So we spoke with this author and this historian about what are the lessons that he learned in gathering all of the research for this piece. What does it tell us about Charlotte's housing policies, what's working, what's not working? So we wanted to share a bit of a snippet with that since it was such an interesting dialogue. So here is my earlier chat with Dr. Tom Hanchett. With that, we have a very exciting guest here in our Live Impact News studio. Tonight we have Dr. Tom Hanchett, who just released a new book here. And Tom, we're so glad to have you here. You're a local historian, and one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you on to the show here today was because you talk about a really important topic for the Charlotte area and really other cities across the nation, but that's affordable housing. And I think this is so special because you've done this case study, but you look at Charlotte. So I feel like this is very informative for folks to know some of the ins and outs of policy in our community and how that is impacting how successful or maybe unsuccessful affordable housing might be here in our area. Is that right?
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have a book here that is Affordable Housing in Charlotte, What One City History Tells Us About America's Pressing Problem. So I wanted to dive into this. We mentioned just a few moments ago, this is a case study looking at Charlotte. How far back did you go in Charlotte history, and what sort of policies did you look at?
Well, when you look at affordable housing, the big turning point is in the late 30s, early 40s, when public housing is invented, and I kind of backpedaled behind that maybe into the 20s to look at naturally occurring affordable housing, which is still a very important thing, and then took the story all the way up to right now, what's going on right now in this city and nationwide.
Yeah. So as far as the different policies you looked at, what caught your eye? For example, did you look at federal policies? Did you look at local policies, state policies? I guess, was there a specific mix? Were you looking mostly at local or federal? How did that kind of shape out?
I went decade by decade, and I expected that there would be a mix, and that's indeed what I found. Federal government has often been in the driver's seat in terms of subsidizing housing. Today there's Section 8, which people may have heard about, the housing choice vouchers. There's also a tax shelter called the Affordable Housing Tax Credit, both of which are in play right now in Washington, so we'll see how that shakes out. But it was fascinating to look over time at periods when Charlotte kind of really stepped up a couple of different times, and one of those was fairly recently.
Can you explain that? I mean, fairly recently, how would you say that the city?
Well, in the late 2010s, the police-involved shooting, the Keith Lamont Scott shooting, caused a lot of people to talk about inequities in Charlotte. And part of that was the changes that are going on in almost all of our older neighborhoods, and even not very old neighborhoods, folks coming in, buying up houses, tearing them down, building big new apartment complexes, individual houses that are much more costly. A lot of folks displaced. And so coming out of that, Mayor Vi Alexander Lyles and other people put together a housing bond issue and took it to the voters. And the voters overwhelmingly approved housing bonds, $50 million and another $50 million. And the most recent one in November, which was, again, wildly popular with voters, $100 million towards affordable housing, which seems like a lot. It's only a drop in the bucket.
And you say that in the sense that it sounds like, because I've looked into some of your book, and it looks like maybe people underestimate the scope of the issue. And I don't want to put words into your mouth, but almost like it's putting a couple drops in a really large bucket of
Indeed. For a long time, most affordable housing was the kind of housing that I took advantage of when I was coming out of college. Get a couple of housemates, or not buy, but rent an old house, and hope that your income goes up. I've spent most of my life as a teacher, so I've actually qualified for affordable housing. I've never used the subsidies, but in terms of the need, it's those kind of folks as well as the poorest of the poor. Well, what's been going on in the last 15 years or so is, have you noticed that housing prices have gone up everywhere? And it has really put a squeeze on low-income folks, on teachers, on nurses, on child care workers, and that is a big deficit in terms of what we need for affordable housing and what we've got.
Now, you bring up the point, the fact that your experience as a teacher, you've seen how, the salary could put some folks at a disadvantage when it comes to affording housing in certain cities, in certain areas, maybe of the city as well. You've shared some notes with us about what is considered affordable, the fact that it's no more than 30% of your income, but you shared as well that some of these households might be households that people aren't thinking would be considered low income, and teachers are there making 60% of the area median income. So, and a whole lot of essential workers in our community are basically at a disadvantage when it comes to housing.
Yes, that's well said. Yeah, when I go out and give talks about affordable housing in Charlotte, about the book, that's the first question is, what do you mean by affordable? Well, there's two parts to it, that you spend no more than 30% of your income on your rent or house payments and your utilities. That's kind of one rule of thumb. The other is that folks who are at median income or less than median income tend to need a little bit of help, so they don't spend more than 30% of their income. And area median income for a family of 4 in Charlotte right now is about $100,000, which sounds like a lot of money. But if you are at 60% of area median income, you're a teacher, something like that, and you spend 30% of your income on rent, you need to find an apartment that's $1,500. If you're at 30% of AMI, folks who are not well-to-do at all, but still working, productive, part of our lives every day, child care workers, custodians, folks like that, and they can afford, by this rule of thumb, $750 a month for rent. Can't find that in Charlotte.
Yeah, and I, start to ponder what that might look like, as a day-to-day life for somebody where maybe I work in Charlotte, but I can't live in Charlotte. And what does my commute look like then? Can I even get to my office? What if I don't have reliable transportation?
Yeah.
And I imagine it's a whole host of issues that kind of spiral from there.
Yeah, you can see the problems cascade. I had some serious health issues about 4 or 5 years ago now, and I was in both of our esteemed, wonderful hospitals. And the thing that I do when I'm trying to make a conversation as a kind of shy person is I say, well, where are you from? And no one who was my caregivers, this was either doctors or nurse assistants, none of them lived in Mecklenburg County. They couldn't afford to. And that is becoming more of an issue. I've talked with people in human resources at the hospitals, talked to people who are hiring teachers for CMS, and they're really worried because it's really hard for the folks we need, as the city we are, as the city we're growing to be able to live in our city.
Yeah, and I think about this too in the sense of, some of the dialogues we've been hearing around these types of roles in our community, these important roles, frontline roles of, teachers who are responsible for our children, and firefighters and police officers and nurses. And, for example, nurses, we talk about how there's not only a current nursing shortage, but there's kind of a looming decade, down the road where they're really looking at what is nursing going to look like if we can't get more nurses to join the field. And I realize it's a complicated issue because my mom, who is a nurse, I hear from her about it's a job where you could easily burn out potentially. Obviously, the pandemic caused some stress, a lot of stress on nurses, but also if I feel like maybe I'm not going to be able to make a certain amount of money to live in a certain community where I work, that could probably be a deterrent for folks to join some of these fields.
Very much so, very much so. And it's it used to be that you'd rent an old house and you'd have some housemates and you'd make it over that way. But now that's becoming more and more impossible. Housing prices in the United States and in Charlotte particularly have doubled since 2008, in the last 15 years or so. And there just aren't any more of those affordable, naturally occurring houses around. And so when we're talking about these kind of subsidies, there's a tendency. One of the things that was in the news in the last 24 hours was a leader in Washington who said, well, we're going to just cap housing subsidies. Yeah, you.
Folks, we're going to break in with a bit more information on a confirmed tornado from yesterday outside the Columbia area. We shared this with you a bit earlier this afternoon, but we're getting a few more details about the track of this tornado. So just a reminder, this was an EF1 in Lexington County. Now we are learning, according to our weather impact team, this tornado had 95-mile-per-hour winds. It was on the ground for a little more than 6 miles. Path was about 200 yards wide. So just a few more details to share with you. You're looking at that red line there. That is the track in general. And keep in mind, too, our weather impact team, particularly Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich, will be diving into this a bit more.